Close your eyes and let the noise of the present day fall away. Imagine yourself sinking slowly into a gentler rhythm, a rhythm older than memory, older than any written page, a rhythm of voices telling stories by firelight when the world was quiet and the stars were the only lamps in the sky. Tonight, as you rest and allow the weight of the day to drift from your shoulders, we will travel together into a tale that has been whispered for thousands of years. It is the story of a great city by the sea, of kings and warriors, of love and betrayal, of cunning strategies, and of fates too heavy for mortals to resist. It is the story of Troy, and at its heart lies the strange, haunting image of a wooden horse, a gift that was no gift at all, a puzzle that lured a city to open its gates to ruin. But before we reach that moment of shadows and trickery, we must step softly into the world that gave rise to it, for only then can the tale breathe fully to life. The Trojan Horse is more than a story of battle or conquest. It is a myth that has wrapped itself around human imagination, retold again and again through generations, each voice adding its own cadence, its own color, its own quiet emphasis. To hear it is to step into a river of memory that has flowed from ancient Greece through Rome, through medieval courts, through Renaissance art, and into our modern day. And yet, when told slowly, when unfolded with the tenderness of a story meant for rest, the Trojan Horse becomes not a tale of violence, but a meditation on human hope, on the ways we long to believe in safety even as danger stands close by, hidden in plain sight. So let the tension of the day soften from your chest, let your breath fall into an even tide, and let the imagination open like a gate to the past. Picture yourself lying on a gentle shore at dusk, the sea calm, the air carrying the faint scent of salt and olive groves. Somewhere in the distance, a city rises with towers of stone, its walls glowing golden beneath the setting sun. Within those walls, people go about their lives. Children chase one another through courtyards. Artisans shape clay into vessels. Women sing softly as they spin wool into thread. Above them all, kings and princes plot, and warriors polish their bronze armor, and priests whisper to the gods whose statues stand in gleaming temples. This is Troy, the city of legend, and as night approaches, it is wrapped in both beauty and destiny. Tonight, you need not worry about remembering every name or following every detail. My voice will carry the story for you, gently and without hurry. You may drift in and out of the tale as sleep comes closer. It will still be here, flowing on, calm as the tide. All you must do is listen, let the words wash over you like waves across sand, and allow yourself to wander through this ancient world without effort, without strain. Think of the story as a soft quilt, stitched from fragments of memory, each piece connecting to the next until you are surrounded by a tapestry of myth. In the silence of your room, the story stretches across time, reaching from a world of stone walls and bronze spears to where you lie now, seeking rest. It is remarkable, is it not, that voices separated by thousands of years can still meet here, that the heartbeat of a legend first sung in Homer's verses can still find its way to your ears in the quiet of the present night. This is the gift of storytelling, to bind past and present, to fold myth into memory, and to make the ancient feel close enough to touch. So settle more deeply, let your body sink into its resting place, and know that the tale ahead will move slowly, like a boat gliding across a calm sea. We will not rush through battle or leap from one event to the next. Instead, we will walk at a gentle pace, pausing often to look around, to notice the shimmer of a shield, the flicker of a torch, the sound of distant lyres in a palace hall. The Trojan Horse will come in its time, but for now, let us begin with stillness, with the promise of a journey that unfolds like a dream. The story you are about to hear is at once familiar and strange. You may know fragments of it already. The beautiful Helen, the proud Hector, the wrathful Achilles, the clever Odysseus. But told here, in this softened way, the myth is less about the clash of swords and more about the atmosphere of an age, the feeling of a world where gods still walked among men, where destiny could not be avoided, and where a single choice could echo forever. The Trojan Horse is only one chapter in that larger song, but it is a chapter filled with mystery, suspense, and the quiet inevitability of fate. Take another breath slow and easy. Let your eyes grow heavy as you listen. Beyond the walls of Troy, the sea is hushed, the horizon is wide, and the story waits. We will begin together now, not with thunder or trumpet, but with the soft turning of time's pages, guiding you into the heart of an ancient legend, one gentle word at a time. Beyond the gentle invitation of our beginning, the story now opens wider, like a vast horizon gradually revealed as morning light spreads over the sea. To understand the tale of the Trojan horse, we must first settle into the world in which it took shape. Imagine yourself drifting slowly across the Aegean, the water beneath you a mirror of pale blue and gold, the air scented with wild thyme and salt. On one side lie the proud Greek city-states, each with its own hills, harbors, and sacred groves. On the other, across the narrow strait of the Dardanelles, rises the fabled city of Troy, its high walls catching the light as if forged not from stone, but from sunlight itself. These two worlds, so close and yet so different, are the stage upon which this timeless story would unfold. The Greeks, or Achaeans as the ancient poets called them, were a people of restless seas and rugged mountains. Their cities, Mycenae, Sparta, Ithaca, Pylos, clung to rocky slopes and narrow plains, each ruled by its own king, yet bound together by shared language, customs, and devotion to a pantheon of capricious gods. Life in these lands was shaped by the earth itself, fields of barley and olives, flocks of sheep grazing on scrubby hillsides, fishermen casting nets into the glittering waters. Yet behind this simple rhythm of daily existence pulsed a fierce pride, a love of glory, and an unshakable belief that honor in battle was the highest measure of a man. From this soil grew heroes whose names still echo. Agamemnon, ruler of Mycenae, stern and commanding. Menelaus, king of Sparta, husband to the woman whose beauty would set nations aflame. Odysseus of Ithaca, clever and wily, a mind as sharp as any spear. Across the sea, Troy thrived in splendor. The city stood near the mouth of the Hellespont, a strategic gate between the Aegean and the Black Sea, where merchants and sailors passed with cargoes of grain, precious metals, and exotic goods. Its location made it both wealthy and envied. Envision its tall walls stretching across the landscape, wide enough for chariots to ride upon, protecting palaces of gleaming stone, courtyards shaded by columns, and markets brimming with fabrics, bronze, and spices. At the heart of Troy reigned King Priam, wise with age, surrounded by his many sons and daughters, each bearing a story that would one day weave into the greater tragedy. Among them was Hector, noble and brave, destined to defend the city with every breath, and Paris, whose choices would set the Trojan War into motion. If you close your eyes and imagine the life of Troy on a calm afternoon, you may hear the voices of merchants calling out their wares, the laughter of children chasing one another through the narrow streets, the songs of women weaving intricate patterns into cloth. In the palace halls, priests tended sacred fires before the statues of gods, whispering prayers to Athena for wisdom, to Apollo for protection, to Aphrodite for love. The people lived beneath the shadow of both prosperity and destiny, their city a jewel admired and envied across the known world. This was not just a clash of armies, but of cultures. The Greeks, fragmented though they were, shared a tradition of restless exploration and a yearning for renown. Their poets sang of heroes, their warriors carved reputations through daring raids and bold adventures. Troy, by contrast, was a symbol of stability and permanence, a city that seemed to grow more resplendent with each generation. Where the Greeks carried with them the salt-stung air of the open sea, the Trojans embodied the wealth of trade routes and the deep-rooted pride of a people secure behind great walls. It was inevitable, perhaps, that these worlds would collide, not merely for one woman, but for the glory of conquest and the spoils of war. As you lie here, listening, you may find yourself picturing this world with gentle clarity. The Greek ships, their hulls of dark wood pulled up on narrow beaches, sails furled as warriors sharpened spears and polished shields. The Trojan towers rising high above the plain, their gates strong and guarded, their people bustling in streets paved smooth by countless footsteps. The air itself thick with the presence of gods, For in this mythic time, mortals and immortals moved within the same space. A sudden storm might be the anger of Poseidon, a sudden passion, the hand of Aphrodite, a sudden flash of brilliance, a gift from Athena. To the ancients, every action echoed with divine influence, every choice bound within the great web of fate. This awareness of the gods is part of what makes the Trojan horse more than just a clever trick. To the ancients, it was a sign of the gods' mysterious will, a puzzle wrapped in divinity. Was it sent by Athena as a holy offering? Was it a trap disguised by human craft? The Trojans, debating at their gates, believed that behind the wood and nails lay something more than human invention. And so, the myth has survived not only as history but as sacred tale, where the divine and the mortal blend together in ways both wondrous and terrifying. Yet for now, we are still before the war, before the siege, before the smoke and ruin. We linger in the calm, in the simple beauty of these two worlds on either side of the sea. It is important to rest here a while, to feel the peace that would be shattered, so that when the storm of conflict arrives, we remember what was lost. Imagine the warmth of Troy's sun upon your skin, the smell of roasted grain wafting from an open hearth, the distant sound of flutes carrying across the evening air. Picture also the rugged beauty of Greece, where farmers guide their oxen through furrows, sailors mend their nets on pebbled shores, and kings sit beneath olive trees, pondering omens and dreams. Both lands were filled with human longing, for safety, for glory, for love, for meaning. These longings, as much as any act of war, shape the course of history and myth. And as the story moves forward, carrying us toward the spark that would ignite the Trojan War, we carry with us the images of this world, the shining walls, the restless ships, the voices of people who could not yet imagine the fate awaiting them. Rest here, in this vision, for a little while longer. Let the details settle softly into your mind. The shimmer of sunlight on a bronze helm, the flutter of a dove across Troy's gates, the creak of a ship's mast rocking gently in harbor. The world of Troy and Greece is open before us now, timeless, waiting. And soon, the tale will move toward the choice that set these two worlds upon a path from which there was no return. The story of Troy's fall cannot begin with wooden beams and iron nails, nor with ships drawn silently onto foreign shores. It begins instead with a spark of desire, a fragile thread of longing that, when pulled, unraveled kingdoms and brought nations to ruin. At its heart lies the tale of two figures whose meeting shaped destiny: Paris, a prince of Troy, and Helen, the queen of Sparta, whose beauty would one day be spoken of as the most dangerous gift the world had ever known. To understand their story, let us drift back to an earlier moment, when the gods themselves stirred events into motion. On a day meant for celebration, the wedding of Peleus and Thetis, the parents of Achilles, all the gods of Olympus gathered in splendor, feasting and singing. Yet one goddess, Eris, the spirit of discord, was not invited. Angered, she cast into the banquet a golden apple, inscribed with 3 words that would echo for eternity: for the fairest. Immediately, the goddesses Hera, Athena, and Aphrodite each laid claim to it, and their quarrel threatened to disturb the harmony of the divine feast. To settle the dispute, Zeus, king of the gods, refused to judge directly, and instead chose a mortal arbiter, Paris, the young Trojan prince, renowned for his fairness and his beauty. Picture Paris in this moment, tending his flocks upon the slopes of Mount Ida, the air around him filled with the scent of pine and wildflowers, the sheep grazing in peaceful silence. Into this calm stepped 3 radiant goddesses, each eager to win his favor. They did not come empty-handed. Hera promised him power, dominion over kingdoms, and the authority of a mighty ruler. Athena offered him wisdom and victory in war, the gift of strategy and skill beyond any mortal. But Aphrodite came with a different prize: the love of the most beautiful woman in the world. Paris, guided not by ambition nor by reason, but by the pull of desire, placed the golden apple in her hand. And with that choice, the threads of fate tightened. The woman promised to Paris was Helen, daughter of Zeus and Leda, famed across all Greece for her beauty. Her radiance was said to outshine all others, her presence a marvel that poets compared to the dawn breaking across the sea. Many suitors had sought her hand, and to prevent strife among them, her stepfather Tyndareus had bound them all by oath. Whomever Helen chose, the others would defend her marriage should any man seek to take her away. Helen chose Menelaus, king of Sparta, brother to Agamemnon, and thus she became queen of a powerful kingdom, her days unfolding within the marble halls of Sparta's palace. But when Paris journeyed to Sparta as a guest, the promises of Aphrodite bore fruit. Imagine the halls of Menelaus' palace, cool and bright, decorated with painted frescoes and flickering oil lamps. Within them, Paris moved with the confidence of youth, his beauty softened by gentleness, his words wrapped in charm. And Helen, though bound by marriage, felt the stirring of Aphrodite's influence, a warmth of affection that grew into something irresistible. Whether she went with Paris willingly or whether she was stolen remains a question that has lingered for centuries. The poets differ in their telling, some insisting she was seduced, others that she was carried away against her will. Yet in either case, the outcome was the same. Paris and Helen left Sparta together, bound for Troy, and behind them they left outrage, dishonor, and a broken oath. It is easy, from our distance, to see this story as inevitable myth, a chain of events preordained by divine quarrels. But imagine, for a moment, the human side of it. Think of Menelaus returning to his palace, expecting to find his queen, only to discover her gone. The stillness of the empty chamber, the bed unoccupied, the servants hesitant to speak. Think of the ache that welled in him, not only from love betrayed but from pride wounded, from the insult to his honor before all of Greece. To him, this was not only a theft of a wife, but a theft of dignity. The oaths of Helen's suitors now called upon them all to act, to unite in one cause, to sail to Troy and bring her back. And so the spark of desire had become a flame of vengeance. Across Greece, messengers rode to summon kings and heroes. Men who had once competed for Helen's hand now prepared to fight for her return, bound by oath and by pride. Agamemnon, brother of Menelaus, took command of the expedition, his voice carrying authority enough to gather the greatest warriors of the age. Odysseus left his island of Ithaca, Achilles was drawn from his training, Ajax and Diomedes joined their strength. Each came with ships and men, not merely for loyalty, but for the promise of glory and the chance to carve their names into the memory of the world. As you lie in stillness, picture the quiet tragedy of this chain of events. A quarrel among goddesses leads to a mortal's choice, that choice to a forbidden love, that love to a broken oath, and that oath to the mustering of 1,000 ships. All of it set in motion by longing, by the tender and dangerous pull of desire. The story might almost be gentle, almost like a love song, if not for the storm of sorrow it carried in its wake. Yet even in this softness, there is a timeless truth. Human hearts have always been moved by beauty, by affection, by the yearning to be chosen. And just as often, these longings have brought joy to some and grief to others. The story of Helen and Paris is not so distant from the stories whispered today, of loves gained and lost, of choices that ripple outward farther than we can see. In this way, myth mirrors life, and the ancient tale becomes a lullaby of human nature, softly reminding us that desire and consequence are ever intertwined. For now, let us linger in this moment before the storm breaks. Helen and Paris have crossed the sea to Troy, welcomed into Priam's halls with celebration, their union shining like a flame in the night. In Sparta, grief has hardened into fury, and across Greece, warriors sharpen their blades, preparing to honor their oaths. The sea between them waits quietly, but soon its waves will carry the weight of war. Rest in this stillness, holding the image of Troy's walls, of Helen's beauty, of Paris' choice, knowing that the story has only just begun its long and winding path toward the wooden horse that still waits far on the horizon of destiny. As the story of Helen and Paris settled into the quiet of Troy's high walls, far across the Aegean, a different kind of stirring was taking place. From the scattered cities of Greece, messengers rode with urgent speed, their horses' hooves striking rhythmically against sun-warmed stone roads, carrying news that could not be ignored. The Queen of Sparta had been taken, or had gone willingly, and the oaths sworn long ago by Helen's suitors called them now to action. Each ruler, each warrior, now had a decision to make: to answer the call, to honor the promise, to sail across the restless sea to challenge Troy. And in these decisions lay the tension of a world on the cusp of a long and fateful war. Imagine the Greek city-states waking to this call. In Mycenae, Agamemnon, brother of Menelaus, received the news in his palace, its stone halls echoing with the sounds of his advisors and servants. The sun had just begun to gild the walls, and the olive trees outside swayed gently in the morning breeze. Yet inside, the air was charged with purpose. Agamemnon, though a man of patience and careful judgment, felt the weight of honor pressing upon him. He knew that the failure to act would be as grievous as the offense itself. And so he summoned the kings, princes, and heroes from across the Greek lands, each one bound by oath, each one drawn by pride and the promise of glory. Across the hills of Ithaca, the clever Odysseus received the summons, his mind already turning over strategies and possibilities. Unlike some of the more impulsive warriors, he measured each detail, imagining the logistics of fleets, the challenges of crossing the sea, the morale of men far from home. In Sparta, Menelaus felt the pain of betrayal in every heartbeat, yet he also recognized the courage of those who would join him in this expedition. From Pylos to Tiryns, from Phthia to Salamis, the call echoed, and slowly, the great machinery of war began to stir. Yet in the quiet of each city, one could also hear smaller, gentler sounds. The laughter of children unaware of what lay ahead, the gentle bleating of flocks, the murmur of streams weaving through sunlit valleys. The juxtaposition of life continuing and destinies forming is the subtle heartbeat of this story, a reminder that even as armies prepare for war, the world itself moves on. And then there were the ships. Picture them now, lining the harbors, hulls resting against the tide, sails furled, each vessel a vessel of promise and peril. Craftsmen and sailors labored in quiet determination, securing rigging, checking oars, and ensuring every plank and mast was ready for the voyage across the unpredictable sea. The warriors who would occupy these ships moved with a mixture of anticipation and solemnity. Some sharpened their spears, polished bronze shields until they reflected the morning light, or tested the flexibility of their leather armor. Others gathered quietly with companions to share a meal, speak of home, or offer small prayers to the gods for safe passage. Imagine the mixture of smells: salt water and tar, fresh bread from nearby ovens, and the faint tang of metal and oil from weapons being prepared. These small details, easily overlooked, fill the air with life even as the larger purpose looms: the march to Troy. As these preparations unfolded, each Greek leader carried his own thoughts, his own fears and ambitions. Agamemnon, though commanding and powerful, felt the weight of expectation pressing on him like a stone. Menelaus, burning with righteous anger, tried to temper his passion with reason. Achilles, young and fierce, wrestled with the thrill of adventure alongside a quiet understanding of danger. Ajax and Diomedes, towering and steadfast, readied themselves with the calm determination of men who understood both the glory and the loss that war promised. Each figure, unique in temperament and strength, contributed to a mosaic of human intention that would soon move as one across the sea. The gods themselves lingered in the story, though unseen by mortal eyes. Imagine Hera, watching with pride for the Greeks' honor; Athena, favoring the clever strategies of her favored heroes; Aphrodite, smiling secretly at the consequences of her earlier promise to Paris; and Zeus, observing all with impartial curiosity, the threads of fate winding in ways that neither gods nor mortals could fully untangle. In this sense, the gathering of armies is more than a military maneuver. It is a convergence of divine will and human ambition, a moment when time slows just enough for the listener to observe, to breathe, and to appreciate the depth of consequence carried in every action. And still, in the midst of all this preparation, life continued in quieter corners. Mothers brushed the hair of children, bakers kneaded dough in dim kitchens, and animals wandered fields without awareness of the coming storm. There is a beauty in this juxtaposition, the ordinary world moving softly, steadily, even as history itself gathers in intensity. This tension between serenity and purpose, between daily life and extraordinary events, is part of what gives the story of the Trojan War its enduring allure, particularly when told in the gentle cadence of a bedtime tale. Soon, the fleets would gather fully, hundreds of ships poised like a metallic tide along the shores. Warriors would step aboard, sails would rise with the morning wind, and the slow journey across the Aegean would begin. Yet for now, let the mind linger in the preparation, in the anticipation, in the quiet before action. Picture the sunlight glinting off bronze helmets, the soft lapping of waves against wooden hulls, the muted voices of men speaking of home and honor. Hear the creak of ropes, the occasional laughter of sailors, the rhythm of life persisting even as a monumental journey begins. This, then, is the gathering of the Greek armies, a moment of both magnitude and intimacy, of tension and calm, of preparation and patience. In these details lies the heart of storytelling, the ability to bring the listener close, to create a vivid world while still maintaining the gentle pace that invites relaxation and immersion. It is here, in this quiet assembly, that the story of the Trojan Horse finds its first momentum. The ships, the men, the oaths, and the hopes of countless mortals converge like threads weaving a tapestry, each moment contributing to a pattern that will soon unfold into legend. Rest here for a while, letting your imagination drift among these ships, these warriors, and these quiet cities. Feel the stillness of anticipation, the beauty of a world on the brink of action, and the gentle movement of time as it carries all toward Troy. The story will continue, but for now, the Greek armies gather, and the stage is set, soft and deliberate, for the events that will shape the fabled city and the tale that endures across millennia. The Greek armies had gathered, their ships lining the shores like silent guardians of destiny, and soon they would sail across the sea to Troy. Yet the story of the war itself is not one of sudden battles and immediate triumphs. The Trojan War stretched across many years, a slow, somber tide that rose and fell with each passing season. Imagine it as a long, patient rhythm, like the gentle pulse of waves against a quiet shore, carrying both glory and sorrow, courage and loss. In this quiet retelling, the years of conflict are not measured in blood alone, but in the weight of waiting, the moments of anticipation, the small acts of human endurance that punctuate the long stretch of history. Picture the first clash of spears and shields on the plains outside Troy, sunlight glinting on bronze armor, dust rising softly with the movement of countless feet. The Greeks, eager to reclaim Helen and honor their oaths, pressed forward with determination. The Trojans, aware of the threat, met them with steadfast courage. For months, for years, the war ebbed and flowed. Skirmishes arose, then waned, walls were tested, gates defended, strategies were plotted, sometimes successful, sometimes failing. There was no single day that defined the war, only a collection of countless small decisions, brave acts, and tragic errors, all moving toward an inexorable conclusion that would only become clear much later. Among the warriors, each carried his own burdens and thoughts. Hector, the noble son of Priam, moved with quiet dignity across the battlefield, protecting his city and people with every breath. Imagine him pausing in the golden light of dawn, spear in hand, surveying the plains where friends and enemies mingled in a dance of life and death. He bore the weight of Troy's hopes, and yet he walked with grace, aware that each day might be his last. Achilles, in contrast, burned with fierce energy, his anger and pride driving him forward with unstoppable force. Some of his victories brought triumph, others sorrow, as friends and foes alike fell under his hand. And Odysseus, clever and patient, moved like a shadow through the chaos, observing, planning, waiting for the moment when his cunning could turn the tide. Each hero, each mortal, lived within this delicate balance of fate, courage, and choice. But war is not only fought on the battlefield. Even in these slow years, the human moments of fear, longing, and hope threaded through the story. Imagine the soldiers at night, lying on the hard ground under a canopy of stars, tending to wounds, sharing a quiet meal, speaking softly of home and family. Picture the mothers in Troy, gazing from the city walls, praying for the safety of their sons, counting each figure on the horizon, wishing for dawn to bring news of survival. Imagine the children, their games muted by the distant thunder of battle, their imaginations filled with heroes both mortal and divine, their laughter tempered by an awareness of the world's fragility. These small, tender moments provide a gentle counterpoint to the long, drawn-out conflict, reminding us that even in times of war, life persists and humanity endures. The war brought with it moments of triumph and moments of grief. Cities were tested, walls stood or fell, and alliances shifted with the subtle guidance of the gods. Some days were bright with victory, when a clever maneuver or heroic effort brought a fleeting sense of hope. Other days were shrouded in sorrow, as the bodies of the fallen were carried from the field, and the songs of victory were replaced with the whispers of mourning. Imagine the soft glow of torches at night, flickering across the walls of Troy, as families grieved and warriors planned the next day's march. The contrast of light and shadow, of hope and despair, carried the rhythm of the war as though it were a slow, breathing entity, alive in its own right. The gods, unseen yet ever-present, continued to weave their influence through the years. Athena watched with careful interest, favoring those whose intellect guided their actions. Apollo, protector of Troy, intervened subtly to shield his favored city. Aphrodite lingered, her earlier choice still rippling across human hearts, guiding passion, desire, and sometimes folly. Even Zeus, distant yet attentive, observed the unfolding events, allowing mortals to act but reminding them, quietly, that the weight of destiny rested upon all. In these interventions, gentle or forceful, the story's depth is revealed, that every sword thrust, every retreat, every decision carried with it echoes far beyond the immediate moment. And yet, amid the clash of armies and the machinations of gods, the long years of war were marked by repetition and routine. Soldiers trained, camped, and marched. Messages were sent from city to city, reports carried across the wind and sea. Armies rotated, reinforcements arrived, and supplies were managed with care. In imagining this, picture the long paths trodden by soldiers, the soft murmur of men moving in formation, the creak of armor and wood, the distant roll of drums and horns. These sounds, though less dramatic than the clashes of battle, form the heartbeat of the war, the quiet rhythm that fills the spaces between moments of heroism and tragedy. In these years, friendships were forged and tested. Bonds between warriors grew strong as they shared hardship, hunger, and the ever-present shadow of mortality. Conversations in the dim light of campfires, laughter shared despite the knowledge of peril, and the silent companionship of those who understood each other in the quiet language of survival. These were the moments that defined the human experience amid the grandeur of myth. It is here, in these subtle acts of courage and companionship, that the story finds a gentle, immersive pulse suitable for reflection and calm, even as it recounts war. As we rest in this image, allow the mind to drift along the edges of the battlefield without dwelling on pain or fury. Visualize the plains stretching into distance, dotted with soldiers tending to each day's work, walls of Troy rising like a sentinel above the fields, and the quiet, patient sea reflecting the soft light of the sun. See the leaders pondering strategy, the warriors moving in careful preparation, the families within Troy's walls awaiting news, all under the ever-watchful eyes of gods whose presence is felt more than seen. In this way, the story is not only about conflict but also about endurance, about the passage of time, and about the human capacity to persevere through hardship. And so the long years of war passed, not as a single, violent explosion, but as a measured, breathing experience. Each day added to the weight of history. Each night brought reflection, rest, and preparation for the next morning. The story of Troy, of its walls, its people, and its heroes, unfolded slowly, revealing the patterns of fate and human action intertwined. Even as the years dragged on, the quiet moments, the gestures of care, the strategic decisions, and the soft prayers of the faithful created a rich tapestry, a story that invites not tension but gentle contemplation. Rest here in the calm of these long years, imagining the ebb and flow of the war like waves upon the shore. Feel the rhythm of time stretching across seasons, of courage and sorrow weaving together, of mortals striving within the patterns set by gods and fate. This is the heartbeat of the Trojan War, slow, deliberate, and immersive, carrying us ever closer to the cunning and mystery that will one day culminate in the legendary wooden horse, waiting silently at the gates of Troy. In the long, drawn-out years of the Trojan War, even the greatest warriors could not escape the gentle yet relentless passage of time, nor the quiet certainty of mortality. Among the many who fought on both sides, there were those whose names would be whispered for generations, whose valor and choices shaped the course of the conflict, and whose deaths would mark turning points in both the war and the hearts of those who survived it. It is in these moments, though tragic, that the story of Troy deepens, becoming not merely a tale of siege and strategy, but a reflection on the fragility, courage, and fleeting nature of life itself. Hector, the noble son of Priam, embodied the spirit of Troy. Imagine him standing on the walls of his city, the early morning sun glinting off his polished armor, the weight of responsibility pressing on his shoulders. He moved among his people with grace, inspiring confidence in soldiers and hope in citizens. Every day brought new decisions, new moments of bravery. Yet Hector was also a son, a brother, a husband, aware of the tender lives that depended on him. His love for his family and his city lent him strength, and at the same time made each choice, each battle, heavy with consequence. In imagining Hector, picture not only the warrior in action but the human being beneath the helm, whose heartbeat mirrored the quiet rhythm of the city he vowed to protect. Across the plains, Achilles, swift and formidable, moved with the relentless energy of a man who sensed the fleeting nature of life and sought to fill it with glory. His rage and skill were both a gift and a burden, drawing the admiration of allies and the fear of enemies alike. When he faced Hector in their fateful duel, it was more than a clash of warriors. It was the collision of destiny, honor, and human emotion. The tension of that encounter, described in soft detail, does not need the sharpness of violence to resonate. One can picture the measured movements, the exchange of words, the weight of expectation, and the inevitable conclusion that Hector would fall, leaving Troy momentarily bereft of its greatest protector. Yet, even in Hector's death, there is a kind of quiet reflection. In his final moments, he thought of his family, of his young son, of the city he had served with unwavering loyalty. There is a solemn beauty in this, a reminder that heroism is entwined with vulnerability, that courage is not the absence of fear but the choice to act despite it. As night falls over the city, the grief of Troy is palpable yet gentle, expressed in whispered lamentations, the soft rustle of garments as families mourn, and the echo of quiet prayers to the gods for protection and mercy. Achilles himself, despite his strength and invincibility, was not immune to fate. His life, though filled with triumph, carried the shadow of its own end. The stories of his eventual fall are woven with the same delicate care, emphasizing the inevitability of mortality and the subtle poignancy of human achievement. Warriors, no matter how skilled or favored by the gods, are subject to the same rhythms that govern the lives of all mortals. In this way, the tale of the deaths of heroes becomes less about bloodshed and more about the serene acceptance of life's natural cycles, a reflection suitable for the quiet mind seeking rest. Even in the midst of battle, there were moments of pause, moments that allowed humanity to breathe amid the chaos. Soldiers tended to wounds with careful hands, messengers carried news with hushed urgency, and leaders made decisions with measured thought rather than impulsive fury. These quiet intervals, often overlooked in tales of heroism, form the heart of a story that seeks to soothe rather than startle. Picture the early morning light on the battlefield, the gentle flutter of banners, the soft rustle of grass as armies reposition. Hear the distant hum of conversation, the quiet clink of metal, the slow rhythm of men moving with both purpose and awareness of life's fragility. The deaths of heroes like Hector and the eventual demise of Achilles also highlight the interplay between human action and divine influence. Gods watched from their lofty realms, guiding, protecting, or testing the mortals below. Apollo, ever watchful of Troy, moved subtly to shield or strike. Athena, favoring cunning and strategy, influenced decisions in ways both obvious and hidden. Aphrodite's touch lingered on the hearts of mortals, reminding them of the enduring presence of desire and fate. Zeus observed all, allowing mortals to act but ensuring that the threads of destiny remained intact. This divine backdrop adds a layer of calm inevitability to the story, a gentle reassurance that even in loss, life and history continue their flow. Yet the human side of these deaths is equally profound. Families within Troy and across the Greek world experienced grief in quiet, tender ways. Mothers wept softly for sons who would never return, siblings held one another in sorrowful embrace, and lovers mourned in the dim light of evening. In these expressions of grief, there is intimacy, a reminder that even amid mythic grandeur, the core of the story lies in human emotion. The city itself seemed to breathe with sorrow, the walls standing tall yet echoing with whispered lamentations, the streets quiet under the weight of collective mourning. Even as one hero fell and another rose, the rhythm of life persisted. Soldiers trained, strategized, and prepared for the next engagement. Within the city, families continued their routines as best they could, tending gardens, caring for animals, and maintaining homes in a fragile semblance of normality. It is in this quiet persistence, in the resilience of ordinary life juxtaposed with extraordinary events, that the story finds its gentle heartbeat. The contrast between human endeavor and human vulnerability deepens the narrative, allowing the listener to drift between tension and relaxation, awe and serenity. As night falls across the fields and the city, the glow of torches casts long shadows on stone walls, reflecting both the presence of heroes and the emptiness left by those who have fallen. Imagine the soft sounds of the evening, the distant murmur of warriors preparing for the next day, the rustle of leaves in the city gardens, the lowing of cattle settling for the night, and the gentle sigh of wind through the olive groves. These are the quiet markers of a world that continues, a reminder that even in the shadow of loss, life endures, soft and unhurried, allowing the mind to relax and drift. And so, the story of the deaths of heroes is not merely a recounting of violence, but a reflection on courage, love, duty, and mortality. It is about the delicate balance between action and stillness, between glory and the quiet acceptance of life's impermanence. It is a story told not in the clamor of battle alone, but in the soft spaces between, in the gestures of care, the whispered prayers, and the steady passage of time that carries both sorrow and hope. Rest now in the memory of these heroes, imagining them not only as warriors of legend, but as human beings shaped by love, honor, and fate. Feel the gentle rhythm of life moving around them, of cities alive with quiet activity, of the sea stretching endlessly beyond the horizon. The story continues to unfold, and though loss has marked this chapter, it is but one movement in the larger, flowing narrative of Troy, a narrative that will carry us onward toward cunning strategies, hidden plans, and the famous wooden horse that awaits silently at the city gates. Even amid the sorrow and valor of Troy, there were those whose minds moved like quiet rivers, flowing beneath the surface of obvious action, gathering strength and shaping outcomes in subtle, unseen ways. Among them, Odysseus, king of Ithaca, stood apart, not solely for his skill with sword or spear, but for the depth of his cunning, his ability to see paths that others could not, to weave strategy as a spider spins its web. In the calm of early morning, long before the sun struck bronze or lit the battlefield with fire, he would wander the camp, observing, listening, and thinking. Every movement of soldiers, every whisper of the wind, every glance of a comrade or enemy might suggest the direction of fate, and Odysseus paid careful attention to them all. He was not driven purely by desire for glory or acclaim, though he would certainly receive both. His motivation was subtler, a deep understanding that cleverness, patience, and foresight could alter the course of events more profoundly than brute strength alone. Imagine him walking along the quiet shores where the Greek ships rested, the surf brushing gently against the hulls, thinking about the long years of siege and the city beyond the walls, Troy, whose stubborn pride and skilled defenders had resisted every direct assault. Each failed attack, each prolonged skirmish, was a puzzle piece, a whisper from fate guiding him toward a solution that was not yet visible to anyone else. Odysseus observed his fellow warriors with a mixture of respect and insight. Achilles, for all his unmatched strength, could be swayed by emotion and anger. Ajax, noble and unyielding, moved predictably in the face of challenges. Agamemnon, authoritative yet occasionally rigid, relied on conventional tactics. But Odysseus saw beyond these qualities. He saw patterns, weaknesses, and opportunities that others did not perceive. In this way, his genius was not merely in action, but in thought, in foresight, and in the ability to anticipate the shifting tides of both men and fate. The story of Troy is as much about such quiet intelligence as it is about heroism in battle. Consider the long days and nights spent camped outside the walls, with soldiers weary, supplies limited, and hope flickering like a candle in the wind. It was in these quiet moments that Odysseus' mind worked, planning, imagining, and constructing strategies that would later change the course of history. Imagine him sketching plans in the sand by torchlight, testing ideas against the backdrop of a sleeping army, feeling the rhythm of thought align with the soft rhythm of the waves lapping the shore. Even the smallest detail, unnoticed by others, could become crucial in the unfolding of events. This is the essence of cunning in myth, the recognition that raw power is only one element in the shaping of destiny. Intelligence, subtlety, and patience can carry weight equal to the mightiest spear. Odysseus understood this well, and his mind was always alive, weaving plans and considering contingencies, aware that Troy's walls were formidable, that its defenders brave, and that the gods themselves might intervene at any moment. And yet, he also recognized that time was an ally, slow, deliberate, and unhurried, giving him the chance to prepare, to wait, and to let the city's own pride and routine create openings for action. It is important, in imagining this, to picture not only Odysseus himself but the world around him. The Greek camp stretched across the shore, long lines of ships resting in the gentle sway of the tide. Warriors slept in small groups, fires burned softly, and the night air was filled with the distant scent of cooking and the faint sound of conversation. In this calm, the contrast of a mind quietly spinning toward a plan feels profound. Where others saw frustration, he saw opportunity. Where others felt weariness, he found clarity. The seeds of the legendary Trojan Horse, though not yet visible, were planted in these reflective moments. Odysseus also understood the psychology of both his allies and his enemies. He knew that pride, fear, and desire could shape decisions as much as swords or walls. He watched the Trojans carefully, noting patterns in their patrols, habits of their sentries, and rhythms of their daily routines. At the same time, he encouraged his fellow Greeks to persist, not merely with force but with morale, knowing that patience and cunning could outlast brute strength. Picture him speaking softly to warriors gathered around a fire, offering gentle advice, encouraging creativity and strategy, fostering unity, all while hiding the vast depth of his plan from even those closest to him. The mind of Odysseus is a reminder that the Trojan War is not only a story of epic battles and tragic deaths, but also of intelligence, ingenuity, and quiet foresight. It is a story in which thought can shape destiny as profoundly as action, and in which the soft, careful rhythms of planning can lead to the turning points that history remembers. As the tale unfolds, it is this combination of patience, observation, and subtle intervention that will ultimately bring about the conditions necessary for the Trojan Horse, the silent and cunning device that will come to define the end of the war. As you lie here, allow your imagination to drift among the quiet shores of the Greek camp, to sense the soft lapping of water, the flickering of torchlight across hulls, the gentle murmur of men speaking in hushed tones, and the singular presence of a mind working steadily, deliberately, shaping the course of destiny. Odysseus' quiet patience mirrors the rhythm of your own breath, the calm unfolding of story, and the gentle movement toward resolution that this tale, like sleep itself, encourages. And so we pause here, at the threshold of cunning and strategy, at the point where thought begins to bend reality toward an eventual turning point. The seeds have been sown, the pieces observed, and the possibilities considered. Soon, These quiet threads will weave together into a plan that will change the fate of Troy forever, carried on the backs of the unsuspecting and immortalized in the soft, enduring glow of myth. The long years of siege, the endless clash of swords, and the tireless vigilance of both Greeks and Trojans had created a rhythm, a slow cadence of war in which patience and cunning became just as important as strength and bravery. And it was within this rhythm, in the quiet of reflection and observation, that the idea of the wooden horse first took shape, a plan conceived not through brute force, but through cleverness, foresight, and a deep understanding of human nature. Picture Odysseus standing on the shore, the sun low on the horizon, casting a warm, golden glow over the fleet. The tide lapped gently against the hulls of ships, the smell of salt and tar mingling with the soft scent of evening air. In this calm, he envisioned a device that could carry both men and fate itself into the heart of Troy. The idea was deceptively simple, yet profound in its subtlety. A large wooden horse, hollow inside, could conceal a number of Greek warriors, allowing them to enter the city without the walls being breached through direct assault. Imagine the skilled carpenters, quietly and carefully, shaping planks of sturdy oak, sanding and fitting each piece, as if the creation were a gentle work of art rather than an instrument of war. Every joint and beam was measured, every curve calculated, so that the horse would appear both magnificent and benign, a gift to the Trojans rather than a threat. The Greeks understood the power of perception. For the Trojans, the horse would be a symbol, an object of curiosity and hope, rather than suspicion or fear. Yet the conception of the horse was not merely a technical endeavor. It relied equally on psychology, on understanding the minds of those within Troy's walls. Odysseus and his companions considered the pride, the desperation, and the desires of the Trojans. After years of siege, the city had endured hardship, witnessed countless deaths, and experienced repeated failures in battle. To the Trojans, the horse could represent a gesture of surrender, a symbol of Greek respect, or even divine will. Imagine advisors whispering among themselves, weighing risks, imagining how the people of Troy would react to such a gift. And in these contemplations, the Greeks saw an opening, a way to turn patience, cunning, and insight into the decisive act that brute force alone had not achieved. The horse itself, large and imposing, was crafted to inspire awe. Picture it gleaming in the sunlight, its surface smooth and polished, its form elegant and precise. The Trojans, from their vantage on the walls, would see it as a monument, a marvel of craftsmanship, and perhaps even a sacred offering to the gods. Within, hidden from sight, warriors crouched in silence, each one aware of the potential danger and the delicate timing required for success. They held their breath as the plan unfolded, understanding that victory depended not only on courage but on patience, secrecy, and the perfect alignment of human action and fate. Odysseus himself guided the construction with quiet authority, his mind balancing countless variables. He imagined the reactions of the Trojans, their curiosity, their speculation, the way their pride might lead them to accept the gift rather than destroy it. He understood that people often acted against their own best judgment when hope, vanity, or fear of offense guided them. And so, the horse was designed not only as a hiding place, but as a carefully crafted psychological trap, a story within a story, waiting for the moment to unfold. At the same time, the Greeks prepared for the final act of the ruse. Some ships would retreat beyond sight, hiding the fleet over the horizon, creating the illusion that the Greeks had abandoned the siege. Others remained behind, concealed in quiet coves, ready to return once the horse had been accepted within the walls. Imagine the careful coordination, the hushed planning, the slow, deliberate timing that would allow the plan to succeed. Every movement was considered, every step rehearsed, as the Greeks balanced patience with precision, waiting for the city to fall not by force, but by the cleverness of human thought. And within Troy, the people remained unaware of the subtle shift about to occur. Exhausted by years of siege, proud yet anxious, hopeful yet wary, they would soon be faced with a choice that seemed benign: to accept the magnificent wooden horse as a gift, to parade it through their streets in triumph, and to allow within their walls a quiet, hidden threat. It is in these moments of calm before the storm that the tension of the story deepens, not through violence, but through anticipation, reflection, and the soft unfolding of fate. The conception of the wooden horse thus embodies the intersection of human ingenuity, patience, and psychology. It is a story not of brute might alone, but of subtle planning, of observing, understanding, and gently guiding others to act in ways that fulfill destiny. As the sun dips lower, casting long shadows across the beach, one can imagine the faint creak of timbers, the soft footsteps of warriors within the concealed space, and the quiet focus of minds plotting a turning point that will resonate for centuries. Rest now in this vision of creation, of patience, and of subtle genius. Feel the gentle rhythm of the waves, the warmth of the evening sun fading to twilight, and the slow, careful unfolding of a plan that blends courage with cunning. The wooden horse, conceived in thought and craftsmanship, awaits the moment when it will move silently into the heart of Troy, carrying with it the fates of kings, warriors, and an entire city. After years of siege, the city of Troy had grown accustomed to the rhythm of war, the rise and fall of battles, the ceaseless watch from the walls, and the persistent uncertainty of each new day. And yet, in the quiet moments that followed a temporary lull, the Trojans would encounter something both extraordinary and perplexing. From the distance of the horizon, the ships of the Greek army had vanished, leaving only the silent, majestic form of a massive wooden horse resting near the shore. Its sheer size and craftsmanship drew the eyes of every citizen, inspiring awe, curiosity, and a spark of hope that perhaps the long ordeal was reaching a gentle conclusion. Imagine the streets of Troy, filled with families peering through narrow alleys and city gates. Mothers held their children close, elders leaned on staffs, and young warriors scanned the horizon, wondering if the enemy had finally retreated for good. And there, standing silently on the sands, was the wooden horse, polished, gleaming in the afternoon sun, and unlike anything they had ever seen. It was not merely a symbol of Greek ingenuity. It was a statement, a carefully constructed offering, crafted to evoke admiration rather than suspicion. Its presence carried a silent message, one designed to appeal to both pride and curiosity. The Trojans debated what to do. Some, weary from years of struggle, hoped to take the horse as a token of Greek surrender, a monument to their own resilience. Others, more cautious, sensed the subtle danger hidden beneath its elegant facade. Imagine the quiet conversations in homes and marketplaces, the hushed murmurs of advisors to the king, the soft gestures of citizens pointing toward the distant horizon where the Greek fleet had disappeared. The city was alive with tension, though not in the chaotic roar of battle, but in the gentle uncertainty that comes when an extraordinary object appears in a familiar world. King Priam, the wise and patient ruler of Troy, summoned his council. The elders, generals, and trusted advisors gathered in the shadow of the palace walls, speaking softly, carefully weighing the risks and benefits. Some argued that the horse was a gift to the gods, a sacred offering whose destruction might invite divine wrath. Others cautioned that the Greeks, clever and relentless, might have left a trap within this ornate structure. Imagine the king listening, his expression calm, yet contemplative, each word from his advisors sinking into the measured rhythm of his thoughts. His mind weighed honor, duty, and survival, aware that any decision would ripple across the city and beyond, shaping the fates of countless lives. Despite these warnings, the Trojans' curiosity and pride ultimately prevailed. The horse was seen as a marvel too beautiful and too symbolic to destroy. Imagine crowds gathering on the shore, soft footsteps pressing into sand, eyes wide with admiration as craftsmen and children alike traced the curves of the horse's polished surface. The city celebrated, imagining themselves victorious at last, the long years of siege coming to an end without further bloodshed. Even the soldiers, tense from months of conflict, allowed themselves a moment of wonder, forgetting, for a fleeting instant, the harsh realities that had dominated their lives for so long. In the quiet of night, the horse was moved into the city. Picture it crossing the gates, slowly, ceremoniously, carried on the shoulders of many strong men, the echoes of hooves and wood filling the air. Citizens lined the streets, their voices hushed with excitement, their faces glowing with torchlight and anticipation. The horse seemed not an instrument of destruction but a symbol of peace, an object that carried hope and beauty into the heart of Troy. Its presence softened the city, drawing tension into fascination, allowing the people to breathe after years of hardship. Yet within its hollow body, hidden from sight, Greek warriors crouched silently. Imagine their controlled breathing, the careful shifting of bodies to remain unseen, the faint scrape of armor or weapon against wood that could have betrayed their presence. Each warrior understood the delicate timing required for the plan to succeed. They were poised, still, patient, waiting for the moment when the city's gates would close behind them, and the final act of cunning could unfold. The tension was subtle, quiet, almost imperceptible, yet it was the heart of the story, the interplay between patience, anticipation, and the gentle unfolding of fate. The gods, unseen, continued their quiet observation. Athena, pleased with the cleverness of Odysseus and his companions, lent subtle influence to ensure the plan's success. Apollo, favoring Troy, watched with cautious interest, balancing divine will against mortal ingenuity. Aphrodite, who had set the initial chain of events in motion, lingered over the hearts of men and women, guiding desire, pride, and hope with invisible threads. Zeus, impartial yet attentive, allowed these moments to unfold, observing the interplay of intelligence, emotion, and destiny. The city's choice, the movement of the horse, and the silent patience of the hidden Greeks were all under the quiet gaze of immortals, lending the scene a timeless, calm, almost meditative quality. As the horse settled within Troy, the city felt a rare and gentle pause. No swords clashed, no walls crumbled, and for a moment, life seemed to exhale, soft and unhurried. Families returned to their homes, soldiers relaxed their vigilance, and the city breathed as one. And yet, beneath the surface of this calm, destiny continued to move forward. The seeds of triumph, of tragedy, and of legend had been quietly sown, and soon, the city would awaken to a revelation that would echo across history. Rest here for a while, imagining the soft glow of torches along the city streets, the gentle murmurs of citizens as they marveled at the horse, and the faint, controlled breaths of warriors hidden within. Feel the rhythm of anticipation, the calm before the storm, and the subtle movement of fate that guides events without hurry or violence. The story of the Trojan horse, conceived in cunning and accepted in awe, now waits silently at the gates of Troy, poised to fulfill its destiny with quiet inevitability. Once the Trojans had moved the magnificent wooden horse into the heart of their city, the Greeks executed the next stage of their quiet, cunning plan. Slowly, deliberately, the remaining Greek ships began to retreat from the shores of Troy. Picture them gliding across the gentle waves, sails catching the soft evening breeze, disappearing gradually beyond the horizon. The city watched, their eyes following the retreating fleet, hearts swelling with a mixture of relief, pride, and the subtle hope that the long years of siege had finally come to an end. And in this calm, the trap was set, though no one within Troy could yet sense it. The retreat of the Greeks was both a practical and psychological maneuver. By withdrawing, they created the impression of abandonment, suggesting that the city had survived, that the enemy had given up, and that the long conflict was over. Imagine the streets of Troy, alive with whispered celebrations, citizens moving cautiously but confidently, soldiers lowering their weapons, and families emerging from homes to witness the perceived end of hostilities. The air was filled with a gentle mixture of excitement and relief, the kind of slow, measured breathing that comes after months of tension. Within the city walls, curiosity mingled with pride. Citizens approached the wooden horse, their steps soft against cobblestones, hands brushing over polished timbers, faces reflecting torchlight and wonder. They examined it from every angle, marveling at its size and craftsmanship. Some imagined it as an offering to the gods, a sacred token of surrender and peace. Others considered it a monument to their own resilience, a symbol of survival and victory. And yet, in all these interpretations, the Greeks' hidden design remained invisible, a secret quietly held within the hollow body of the horse. Inside the wooden horse, the hidden warriors remained motionless, their breath shallow, their minds alert. Imagine their awareness of every shift in the crowd, every footstep along the street, the subtle creaks of wood under the weight of those above, and the anticipation that each passing moment might bring opportunity or danger. They had trained for years, prepared for this moment, and yet the patience required now was as challenging as any battlefield encounter. Time stretched like a soft, slow tide, carrying them forward toward the moment when their presence would be revealed. Meanwhile, Odysseus walked quietly along the shore, observing the city from a distance, noting the reactions of the Trojans, and ensuring that every piece of the plan was proceeding as intended. His mind moved like a gentle stream, considering contingencies, predicting responses, and guiding the unfolding events with subtlety rather than force. The calm of evening, the soft lap of waves against the retreating ships, and the fading glow of the horizon mirrored the quiet precision of his strategy, demonstrating that intellect and patience could shape destiny as profoundly as courage or strength. Back within Troy, the citizens celebrated the apparent end of the siege with restrained jubilation. Soldiers lowered their shields, families stepped into the streets, and the gates, which had been closed and fortified for so many years, were opened wider than usual to welcome a sense of peace. The city seemed to breathe as one, inhaling relief, exhaling tension, and filling the quiet spaces with soft laughter, whispered conversations, and the gentle shuffle of movement. The Greek fleet, now far beyond the horizon, remained out of sight, leaving Troy to savor a moment of calm that masked the fate already woven into the city's heart. The subtle interplay of anticipation and deception is what gives this part of the story its quiet power. The Greeks did not storm the walls or break gates with brute force. Instead, they allowed Troy to believe it had triumphed, to lower its vigilance, and to embrace hope. In this way, the long siege was brought to a gentle pause, a soft interlude before the inevitable conclusion. Imagine the contrast between the bustling city filled with life and celebration and the silent, patient Greeks concealed at sea and within the horse, two worlds moving in parallel, separated by perception but connected by fate. As night fell, a gentle hush settled over Troy. Torches flickered along walls and streets, casting long shadows, while families retreated to homes, soldiers returned to quarters, and the city embraced the soft illusion of safety. The wooden horse stood at the center, imposing yet tranquil, its presence a calm signal that the war had ended, even as it concealed the very agents of the city's eventual downfall. The Greeks, patient and unhurried, had orchestrated an entire sequence of events that relied not on immediate action, but on the subtle, deliberate shaping of belief and expectation. Rest now in this quiet, imagining the slow retreat of ships over the horizon, the gentle rustle of leaves in the city, the soft murmur of voices filled with hope, and the serene weight of patience held within the wooden horse. This moment is one of anticipation, calm, and deliberate unfolding, the perfect alignment of human intelligence, timing, and quiet strategy. The story moves slowly toward the climax, carrying both the listener and the city of Troy forward in a gentle rhythm that soothes the mind while revealing the inexorable movement of fate. And so the Greeks, hidden within their retreat, left Troy in a delicate balance of relief and curiosity, preparing the stage for the final act. The city, unaware of the presence concealed within the horse and lulled by the retreating enemy, now rested, soft and unguarded, its destiny moving quietly toward the night when hidden warriors would emerge and history itself would be reshaped. With the Greek ships seemingly vanished beyond the horizon, the city of Troy relaxed in the quiet after years of relentless siege. The citizens, weary from countless battles and long months of uncertainty, gathered around the massive wooden horse that now rested at the city's heart. Imagine families walking slowly through the streets, their footsteps muted against stone, heads craning upward to admire the sheer size and craftsmanship of the horse. Its polished timbers gleamed in the soft glow of torchlight, casting long, gentle shadows across the streets, and evoking admiration and curiosity in equal measure. This marvel, they believed, was a symbol of the end of conflict and perhaps even a gift from the gods. King Priam, calm yet contemplative, walked among his advisors and soldiers, considering the horse with measured thought. Some urged caution, warning of potential traps, whispering fears into the king's ears. Others, exhausted and eager to celebrate, argued that the horse represented a gesture of Greek surrender, a token of respect, or even divine favor. Imagine the soft exchange of ideas in the palace, voices hushed against the backdrop of the city's quiet excitement. The debate was gentle yet significant, a reflection of the careful balance between curiosity, pride, and prudence that defined the choices of mortals. The citizens' fascination with the horse grew. Children pressed close, tracing the curves and carvings of the wooden structure with small, tentative hands, while elders shook their heads in wonder at the sheer audacity and skill that went into its construction. Soldiers examined it from a distance, leaning on their spears, whispering softly about what might lie within, their eyes wide with both admiration and uncertainty. There was a rhythm to the city's movements, a soft cadence of anticipation, a gentle tension that threaded through every corner of Troy. The horse had become a magnet for attention, a symbol that united hope, curiosity, and the subtle thrill of the unknown. Despite the initial caution, the decision was made to bring the horse within the city walls. Imagine the streets alive with slow, careful activity, men lifting and pushing the massive structure, the creak of timber under measured weight, the shuffle of feet across cobblestones, and the soft murmur of voices filled with awe and excitement. Citizens lined the streets, torchlight reflecting off polished wood, eyes bright with anticipation, imagining that the end of the war had finally come. The movement was deliberate, ceremonial even, as if the city were participating in a ritual that honored both victory and divine favor. Inside the hollow belly of the horse, the Greek warriors held their breath. Each warrior crouched silently, aware of the delicate timing required to succeed. Their bodies were still, their senses heightened, their minds focused on the precise moment when they would emerge. Imagine the quiet intensity of this space, the faint rustle of armor, the soft shuffle of hands against wood, the controlled breathing that echoed like a slow heartbeat. Patience was as crucial as courage in this moment, for the success of the plan depended on both secrecy and timing, a gentle unfolding of events that would culminate in one decisive action. As the horse entered the city, children ran alongside it, pointing and laughing softly, while merchants and citizens paused from daily chores to marvel at the structure. Imagine the soft glow of evening light reflecting off the polished timbers, illuminating the faces of awestruck onlookers. There was a quiet majesty to the scene, a sense of ceremony and wonder that contrasted with the years of hardship and siege. The city was alive with movement, but the energy was gentle, almost celebratory, carrying a rhythm that invited both reflection and admiration. King Priam, feeling the weight of responsibility yet allowing hope to guide him, approached the horse. Imagine him placing a hand gently on the polished wood, feeling its solid strength, considering what it might represent. Some advisors whispered caution, their voices soft, while others encouraged celebration. And in that quiet moment, the decision was made to accept the horse fully into the city, allowing it to become part of Troy's life, a symbol of apparent victory and divine favor. The city, lulled by relief and pride, was unaware of the hidden danger within its walls. Throughout the streets, celebrations began in gentle whispers and soft laughter. Families returned to their homes with stories of the magnificent horse, soldiers relaxed their vigilance, and the city exhaled a sigh of relief after years of tension. Torches glowed along walls and streets, casting soft shadows that danced across buildings and alleys. The rhythm of Troy shifted subtly, from caution and fear to admiration and curiosity, a gentle lull that would make the coming events all the more startling. The moment was a quiet triumph of strategy over strength. The Greeks, hidden within the horse, had orchestrated a sequence of actions that relied on observation, patience, and psychological insight rather than direct confrontation. The city, exhausted and proud, accepted the gift with awe and admiration, lowering its defenses and embracing a sense of calm that would prove both comforting and ultimately perilous. Imagine the streets quieting as night settled, torches flickering, and citizens retiring to homes filled with hope and anticipation, unaware that history was poised to shift within the shadow of the magnificent wooden horse. And so, with soft celebration and a city lulled by relief, the horse stood at the center of Troy, silent yet alive with the hidden presence of Greek warriors. It was a moment of quiet triumph, patience, and careful orchestration, where intelligence and cunning quietly eclipsed brute force. As the city settled for the night, unaware of the fate that lay hidden, the story gently moved toward its climax, carrying the listener in a calm, deliberate rhythm that invites both wonder and reflection, perfectly suited for the slow unfolding of sleep and imagination. Night fell softly over Troy, wrapping the city in a gentle blanket of darkness, quieting the streets and calming the minds of its citizens. Torches flickered along walls and alleys, casting long, wavering shadows that danced gently across cobblestones and rooftops. The air was cool and still, carrying faint scents of the sea and olive groves beyond the city gates. Within this calm, a subtle tension lingered, imperceptible to the people of Troy, who had embraced the presence of the magnificent wooden horse as a symbol of hope, peace, and divine favor. They were unaware that within its hollow belly, the fate of their city quietly waited, poised to emerge with the silent precision of carefully held breath. Inside the horse, Greek warriors stirred softly, their muscles tense but controlled, minds alert despite the stillness surrounding them. Imagine their measured breathing, each inhale and exhale deliberate, each movement a study in patience and discipline. They had trained for this moment, rehearsing quietly in their imaginations for years, and now the time had arrived. Every heartbeat seemed to echo in the hollow wood, a gentle rhythm carrying them toward the moment of emergence. The night, serene and calm, became the canvas upon which cunning and destiny would quietly paint their next scene. Odysseus, ever watchful, moved along the shadows near the city walls. His eyes, keen and observant, scanned the streets for any sign of danger or unexpected movement. The gentle rustle of leaves, the soft murmur of distant voices, the subtle flicker of torchlight, all were part of the delicate calculation that would determine the success of the plan. He had observed the Trojans' reactions carefully over days, noting their patterns, habits, and the rhythm of their curiosity. Now, with the city lulled into a calm sense of security, he prepared to orchestrate the final sequence with subtle precision, relying not on brute force, but on timing, psychology, and the careful unfolding of events. As the city slept, the horse became more than a symbol. It was a vessel of destiny. The warriors inside adjusted their positions silently, each aware of the exact moment when they would leave the safety of concealment and step into the streets. Imagine the soft creak of wood under weight, barely audible in the hush of night, and the faint rustle of armor and clothing as bodies shifted into readiness. Every sound was controlled, every movement deliberate, a testament to the discipline and patience that had been honed over years of waiting and planning. Outside the horse, the streets of Troy were peaceful, almost serene. Guards had relaxed their vigilance, families slept, and the city seemed to exhale after decades of tension and uncertainty. The contrast between the quiet city and the hidden, alert warriors within the horse created a sense of calm anticipation, a gentle tension that did not disturb sleep but invited the imagination to wander. Imagine the moonlight reflecting off the stone walls, illuminating narrow alleys and quiet squares, while within the heart of the city, destiny waited silently, patient and unhurried. As the night deepened, Odysseus signaled with a subtle gesture, and the hidden warriors began to emerge. Step by step, they descended into the streets, their movements silent yet deliberate. Imagine the soft contact of feet on stone, the gentle adjustment of armor, and the careful navigation through shadows. They moved with awareness of both the city above and the fragile balance of secrecy that allowed the plan to succeed. Each step was measured, each breath controlled, as the warriors became part of the quiet rhythm of Troy's night, a rhythm that had unknowingly prepared for their arrival. The first few Greeks emerged near the gates, moving swiftly yet silently toward strategic positions within the city. Their objective was clear: to seize control of key points, open the gates for the returning fleet, and create the conditions for the city's surrender without unnecessary chaos. Picture them pausing briefly in shadowed corners, listening to the faint sounds of sleeping citizens, and advancing with both precision and patience. Their presence was nearly imperceptible, a silent tide moving through the streets, guided by intellect, timing, and the quiet pulse of anticipation. Inside homes, within the palace, and along the city walls, the people of Troy remained unaware of the silent invasion. Dreams mingled with the gentle sway of the night, soft breathing punctuating the calm, the air filled with the subtle rhythm of trust and relief. Imagine the contrast: citizens at ease, lulled by hope and the apparent end of the war, while the city's destiny quietly shifted under the soft cover of darkness. The Greek warriors, disciplined and patient, moved like shadows within the framework of this gentle night, ensuring that the city would fall not through sudden, chaotic violence, but through careful, precise execution of a plan years in the making. Even the gods watched quietly from their distant realms. Athena, favoring cunning and strategy, observed with satisfaction, guiding the subtle actions of Odysseus and his men. Apollo, protector of Troy, looked on with restrained interest, aware that mortal ingenuity was about to test the limits of his influence. Aphrodite lingered over hearts and minds, subtly shaping emotions without visible intervention. And Zeus, distant yet attentive, allowed the interplay of intelligence, patience, and human action to unfold naturally. The scene was both mortal and divine, a gentle alignment of strategy, timing, and destiny. As the Greeks secured positions within the city, the first faint noises began to ripple through the streets. The soft unlocking of gates, the quiet movement of bodies, the subtle transition from anticipation to action. Troy, still asleep in spirit if not entirely in body, remained unaware that history was shifting beneath its feet. Imagine the gentle rhythm of the city blending with the careful, deliberate movements of the warriors, creating a narrative of calm tension, patient execution, and the soft unfolding of fate. And so, under the gentle cover of night, the Greeks emerged from the wooden horse, quietly taking control of key areas, opening gates, and positioning themselves for the final stage of the conquest. The city, lulled by years of siege, relieved by the apparent departure of its enemy, and entranced by the beauty and majesty of the wooden horse, remained unaware that destiny had arrived quietly in the soft, measured steps of hidden warriors. The night carried both calm and anticipation, a perfect rhythm for reflection, imagination, and the gentle passage of story toward its climactic turning point. The first light of dawn began to stretch across Troy, painting the city walls and streets in soft, golden hues. Yet within the streets and alleys, a quiet tension now replaced the gentle calm of night. The Greeks, having emerged from the wooden horse, moved with deliberate precision, taking control of strategic gates, stairways, and key points throughout the city. Their movements were silent and patient, like a slow river shaping the landscape with unseen force. Imagine the contrast between the awakening city, still unaware of the subtle shift in power, and the disciplined, methodical presence of the hidden warriors now acting with calculated intent. The people of Troy, still lulled by relief and wonder from the previous night, began their morning routines, unaware that history itself was slipping silently through their hands. Citizens carried water from wells, merchants opened shutters to greet the first rays of sunlight, and soldiers inspected walls, stretching arms and shaking off the weight of sleep. Imagine these ordinary gestures, gentle and mundane, set against the extraordinary reality of Greek warriors quietly positioning themselves throughout the city. The calm of daily life amplified the tension in the shadows, creating a rhythm that combined tranquility with subtle anticipation. The palace, the heart of Troy, became a focal point for the Greeks' plan. Odysseus and his companions moved quietly through the streets, ensuring the palace gates were secured and that any potential resistance could be neutralized without unnecessary chaos. Each movement was precise, each action measured, reflecting years of patience and careful observation. Imagine warriors slipping through narrow alleyways, crouching in shadows, pausing to listen to distant sounds, their presence hidden in plain sight. The city itself seemed to breathe around them, unaware that its fate was being gently, inexorably reshaped. As the city slowly stirred, the first subtle signs of confusion appeared. Soldiers patrolling the streets noticed movements that did not belong, shadows where none should have been, and a stillness that was almost unnatural. Their curiosity was mingled with uncertainty, soft murmurs passing between them, hesitant questions whispered in low tones. Imagine the delicate balance of tension in these moments. The Trojans still largely unaware of the magnitude of the events unfolding, while the Greeks, patient and deliberate, quietly maintained control. The contrast between normalcy and subtle intrusion heightened the narrative in a gentle, immersive way, inviting the listener to drift with the unfolding story without sudden alarm. Citizens ventured further into the streets, drawn by the magnificence of the wooden horse and the lingering excitement of its presence from the previous night. Families walked slowly, children holding hands with elders, pointing toward the gleaming structure in the city center. Imagine the soft shuffle of feet across cobblestones, the rustle of garments, the faint laughter of those unaware that danger now moved silently around them. Within the belly of the city, the Greeks remained invisible yet fully present, their actions guided by careful timing and strategic patience, ensuring that the unfolding events would reach their climax with precision. The opening of gates, one by one, marked a subtle transformation in the city. The Greeks, now fully active, began guiding small groups of reinforcements into Troy from their hidden positions, creating a quiet but decisive shift in the balance of power. Imagine the gates swinging open with gentle creaks, the soft tread of boots across stone floors, and the silent coordination of warriors who had waited years for this exact moment. The city, still basking in the illusion of safety and victory, remained unaware that its own defenses had been quietly compromised, leaving space for destiny to quietly enter its heart. The contrast between the normal morning routines and the invisible presence of the Greeks created a surreal, almost dreamlike rhythm. The Trojans went about their daily lives, performing ordinary tasks, while the fate of the city unfolded silently around them. Imagine the soft chirping of birds, the gentle rustle of olive branches in the breeze, and the faint hum of activity from homes and markets, all underscored by the quiet, patient movements of warriors who had transformed Troy from within. It is in this delicate juxtaposition that the story finds its immersive, sleep-friendly rhythm, blending calm imagery with subtle tension. Within the palace, King Priam and his advisors remained largely unaware of the impending shift. They moved through halls and courtyards, discussing mundane matters and the apparent peace following the retreat of the Greek fleet. Imagine the soft tap of sandals on polished floors, the gentle murmur of conversation, and the faint scent of cooking fires in the distance. Their normalcy, their calm, and their trust in the apparent end of conflict only heightened the suspense for the listener, who now knows that the city's fate is quietly tilting in favor of the hidden Greeks. As the Greeks secured key points within Troy, the wooden horse itself became the symbol of both awe and quiet terror. Warriors inside had already emerged, moving through the city with the soft precision of a predator in a gentle, controlled dance. Imagine the soft scraping of armor against stone, the careful placement of hands and feet, and the hushed communication that guided the unfolding of events. The calm streets, the ordinary routines of citizens, and the gentle morning light created an immersive backdrop for this slow, deliberate transformation of Troy from a proud city into a stage for destiny. And so, the fall of Troy began not with the roar of battle, but with quiet, precise movements, patience, and careful orchestration. Ordinary life and hidden action intertwined. The city's fate reshaped through the measured steps of the Greeks and the unawareness of those who still believed peace had arrived. The narrative flows gently, guiding the listener through anticipation and reflection, illustrating the power of strategy, patience, and subtlety, while preserving the calm, immersive tones suited for sleep and relaxation. By mid-morning, the quiet streets of Troy began to change, though the transformation was subtle at first, almost imperceptible to the waking citizens. The Greek warriors, having emerged from the wooden horse during the stillness of night, now moved through the city with careful precision, occupying key positions and guiding reinforcements from hidden corners. Imagine the soft shuffle of feet across stone, the faint click of armor, and the whispered coordination among soldiers who had waited years for this moment. There was no chaotic clamor, no immediate clash of swords. Instead, the city shifted under the gentle, deliberate hand of cunning strategy. The citizens of Troy were slow to notice anything amiss. Families carried water, merchants opened shops, and children chased one another along streets illuminated by the soft glow of the morning sun. The city seemed to breathe normally, yet beneath this ordinary rhythm, the Greeks had already begun to tip the balance of power. Gates previously considered secure now stood subtly compromised, patrols were redirected, and key routes controlled by invisible hands. The quiet precision of their movements transformed the city gradually, like a soft tide reshaping the shoreline, without a single wave breaking violently. Within the palace, King Priam and his advisors continued their routines, still convinced of safety and victory. Imagine them walking through courtyards, exchanging gentle words about the city's apparent triumph, while beyond the walls, Greek warriors moved with patience and skill, taking positions that would soon allow them to dominate the city entirely. The contrast between calm confidence and the hidden reality of infiltration created a tension that was felt not in loud sounds, but in the subtle unfolding of destiny. This quiet, methodical approach to conquest is what makes the story both immersive and suitable for a gentle, reflective pace. As reinforcements moved into the city, the streets began to fill with disciplined soldiers, appearing gradually, almost like shadows in the corners of vision. Imagine the soft creak of doors opening to let in carefully guided units, the hushed commands of officers, and the gentle steps of men trained to move with silent precision. The Trojans, still waking from the gentle illusion of peace, noticed only fragments at first. A strange formation here, a group of unknown soldiers there, interpreting them as curiosity or coincidence rather than understanding the slow encroachment of their hidden enemy. The wooden horse, standing silently in the city center, had become both symbol and signal. Citizens approached it with awe and lingering curiosity, unaware that it had already fulfilled its purpose as a vessel of hidden warriors. Within its hollow form, some Greeks remained poised to act if necessary, their presence a final safety net ensuring the city could not resist the soft, methodical takeover. The gentle rhythm of their actions mirrored the calm of the streets, the subtle soundscape of a city adjusting unknowingly to the tide of destiny flowing through it. In narrow alleys, along quiet courtyards, and at city gates, the Greeks quietly took control. Imagine soldiers sliding into hidden corners, securing stairways, and guiding reinforcements in ways that were barely noticeable. Even as citizens carried on, some pausing in wonder at the morning sun or the gleam of polished timbers on the horse, the city structure was being subtly dominated, step by step, corridor by corridor. The slow, deliberate unfolding of these movements created a rhythm that was both tense and relaxing, a quiet narrative of strategy that moves gently through the imagination rather than startling it. As the morning progressed, the first soft signs of realization began to appear among the Trojans. Guards noticed unfamiliar faces, the subtle coordination of soldiers not recognized, and whispers of confusion began circulating in small groups. Yet the calm was maintained, and the Greeks, trained in both patience and observation, waited for the perfect alignment of events. The city's reaction, restrained and understated, enhanced the immersive quality of the story, allowing the listener to feel anticipation without abrupt disturbance, as if destiny itself were moving with quiet deliberation. Inside the palace, King Priam still moved with dignity, unaware of the subtle takeover of key positions around him. He noted some unusual movement outside the gates, soft whispers from his guards, and minor irregularities, but he could not yet comprehend the full scale of the change. The contrast between the perceived peace within the palace and the careful, disciplined encroachment of the Greeks creates a tension that is gently immersive, a tension that unfolds like a slow, steady wave rather than a sudden storm. By late morning, the city was effectively overrun, though few understood the full extent. Greek control was established over strategic gates, thoroughfares, and critical sections of the city, all without raising alarm or provoking panic. The citizens, still largely unaware, continued their routines with a quiet sense of awe at the horse, at the beauty of the morning, and at the perceived end of siege. Imagine this subtle, surreal juxtaposition: ordinary life proceeding against the backdrop of quiet conquest, the soft rhythm of destiny quietly reshaping Troy's future. In this delicate unfolding, the story emphasizes strategy, patience, and subtlety rather than chaos or violence. The city's fall begins with observation, careful positioning, and the slow, quiet dominance of intellect over force. Imagine the sun climbing higher, casting long shadows across streets and rooftops, highlighting the gentle movements of Greek soldiers as they consolidate control. The narrative remains immersive, calm, and reflective, guiding the listener through the quiet inevitability of Troy's downfall without sudden alarm, perfectly suited for a sleep-friendly storytelling rhythm. And so, Troy was softly, patiently, and almost imperceptibly overrun. The Greeks moved like a silent tide through the streets, securing positions, guiding reinforcements, and preparing the city for the final moments that would seal its fate. The story carries forward in a calm, deliberate pace, blending anticipation, strategy, and gentle reflection, allowing the listener to drift along with the unfolding legend as the quiet fall of Troy progresses toward its ultimate climax. By early afternoon, Troy was fully under the control of the Greek warriors who had emerged from the wooden horse during the quiet of night. The streets, once filled with soft morning routines, now echoed with the measured steps of disciplined soldiers, each moving in perfect coordination to secure key areas and ensure complete control. The city, so proud and resilient for so many years, had fallen not through brute force, but through the quiet, deliberate cunning of those who understood patience and human nature. Imagine the soft shuffle of feet across cobblestones, the faint clinking of armor, and the gentle coordination of commands whispered in low tones, a slow, rhythmic unfolding of destiny. Inside homes and courtyards, the citizens of Troy began to recognize the presence of the Greeks. There was no sudden panic, no chaotic clash. Instead, the realization crept in gently, like a soft breeze moving through familiar streets, altering the familiar landscape without immediate violence. Families watched from windows and doorways, unsure of how to respond, hearts beating quietly in response to a danger they had never fully anticipated. The contrast between the calm beauty of the city and the subtle occupation of its streets heightened the immersive quality of the story, allowing the listener to feel tension without sudden alarm. The palace became a central focus. Greek soldiers moved with quiet precision, securing corridors, stairways, and the entranceways that had once seemed impenetrable. Imagine the soft echo of footsteps on polished floors, the gentle shifting of guards who had been stationed there for years, and the subtle coordination that ensured complete control without unnecessary noise or confusion. King Priam, despite his wisdom and experience, could feel the shift in the air, the gentle tightening of circumstances, and the quiet presence of a force he had underestimated. The city's fate, once thought secure, now unfolded with slow inevitability. Throughout Troy, small groups of Greek warriors moved through the streets with patient diligence. They guided reinforcements, secured gates, and neutralized resistance with minimal confrontation, their actions deliberate and unobtrusive. Imagine the subtle sounds of controlled movements, the careful adjustment of weapons, and the whispered coordination between officers, all creating a sense of gentle inevitability rather than sudden chaos. The city's ordinary life, once filled with the rhythm of work, trade, and family, now flowed alongside this quiet transformation, creating a dreamlike contrast that is both soothing and suspenseful for the listener. The wooden horse, standing in the center of Troy, had fulfilled its purpose completely. Its hollow form was now empty of the original hidden warriors, yet its presence continued to symbolize both awe and deception. Citizens who had gathered to marvel at its craftsmanship now watched as Greek soldiers moved around it, realizing the cleverness of the plan too late to resist. Imagine the polished timbers gleaming in the soft afternoon sun, a silent witness to the subtle conquest that had unfolded while the city slept, unaware of the hidden danger carried into its heart. Even as control was established, the Greeks acted with measured restraint. Their movements were precise, avoiding unnecessary violence, guided by strategy rather than chaos. Imagine narrow alleyways, quiet courtyards, and sunlit streets filled with subtle yet decisive actions, the soft sounds of locking gates, the controlled commands of officers, and the gentle repositioning of troops. The contrast between this calm, methodical takeover and the city's earlier carefree routines created a rhythm that was immersive and reflective, allowing the listener to follow events with a sense of relaxed anticipation. As the afternoon progressed, the first subtle acts of taking possession began. Key treasures, previously safeguarded, were quietly secured. Resources and strategic points were carefully controlled to prevent resistance, all executed without raising alarm or panic. Citizens, still absorbing the realization of what was occurring, moved cautiously, aware now of the silent presence around them. The Greeks' success lay not only in their discipline, but in their ability to harmonize with the city's rhythm, reshaping Troy's destiny while preserving a calm, reflective atmosphere. In homes and streets, whispers passed from one citizen to another, slowly spreading the awareness that their city was now under foreign control. Yet the Greeks' careful approach meant that panic did not overwhelm the city. Instead, the fall of Troy unfolded like a story within the story. A gentle, immersive narrative where awareness grows gradually, tension builds softly, and the listener can drift along with the rhythm of events, almost as if moving through the city themselves. The palace, as the symbolic heart of Troy, witnessed the convergence of strategy, patience, and fate. King Priam, observing the soft occupation of his city, understood that years of siege and pride could not save what had been lost through cunning and intellect. The Greek warriors moved like quiet shadows through the halls, their discipline and timing ensuring that the city's surrender would be complete without unnecessary destruction. Imagine the soft patter of footsteps, the low murmur of commands, and the subtle shift in the air, as the old city that had stood for centuries quietly yielded to the meticulous plan conceived by those who had once been its enemies. And so, the sack of Troy began gently, methodically, and almost imperceptibly. The city, long resilient and proud, fell not through loud chaos but through the careful orchestration of patience, strategy, and human understanding. The story flows with calm intensity, carrying the listener through anticipation, reflection, and immersion, all while maintaining the soothing, sleep-friendly rhythm established from the first section. The Greeks, masters of patience and intellect, had turned years of waiting into a quiet, deliberate victory that would echo through the ages, a testament to subtlety, foresight, and the gentle unfolding of fate. As the Greeks moved quietly through the streets of Troy, establishing control and securing key positions, the fate of the royal family became increasingly apparent. King Priam, wise and venerable, had witnessed the slow unraveling of his city, a process that had been as quiet as it was inevitable. The palace, once a place of security, order, and authority, now felt the subtle presence of foreign power pressing gently against its walls. Imagine the corridors, the grand halls lined with stone and tapestry, suffused with the soft golden light of afternoon, yet carrying the faint echo of movements not belonging to Troy, a quiet, almost imperceptible reminder that the city's destiny was being rewritten. Priam moved slowly through the palace, accompanied by a small retinue of trusted attendants. His gaze shifted from familiar rooms to the open courtyards, taking in the subtle changes in atmosphere, the unusual shadows, and the soft hum of controlled activity that seemed foreign yet deliberate. The Greek warriors, disciplined and patient, had not yet resorted to open violence, but their presence was felt in every corridor and doorway, a quiet assertion of authority that contrasted with the earlier calm and confidence of the king's domain. Imagine the soft tapping of sandals on polished floors, the gentle rustle of clothing, and the faint murmur of voices, all blending into an atmosphere that was both serene and charged with the quiet inevitability of fate. Within the royal apartments, the queen and her children remained largely unaware of the full scope of the Greek takeover. Imagine them moving with the rhythm of routine, preparing for the day as though it were any other, their attention drawn to domestic details while the fabric of their security subtly frayed around them. Priam's attendants whispered softly among themselves, casting cautious glances toward windows and doors, but the soft, methodical approach of the Greeks ensured that panic had not yet taken hold. In this gentle contrast between perceived safety and the quiet encroachment of danger, the story achieves a calm, immersive tension perfect for reflective listening and imagination. The Greek warriors approached the palace with deliberate care, their steps measured and controlled, ensuring minimal disruption while guiding events toward their ultimate conclusion. Imagine the soft slide of feet along stone corridors, the low murmur of strategic commands, and the careful coordination required to neutralize the king's household without unnecessary conflict. Every movement was precise, reflecting both discipline and patience, as if the city itself were being reshaped by quiet hands rather than overwhelming force. This subtle orchestration of events allowed Troy to experience the fall of its monarchy not with sudden chaos, but as a measured, almost ceremonial transition in control. Priam, sensing the shifting tides, moved toward the main hall of the palace, accompanied by a few trusted guards. He observed the soft occupation of key entryways, the careful placement of soldiers in positions that subtly constrained movement, and the quiet efficiency of the Greeks' actions. Imagine his awareness growing slowly, like a soft tide moving through familiar waters, each observation layering understanding upon realization. The contrast between his deliberate, calm movements and the silent yet purposeful presence of the Greek warriors created a gentle tension, immersing the listener in the unfolding drama while maintaining a reflective and soothing rhythm. The royal family gathered quietly in the main hall, Priam's voice calm but measured as he addressed his attendants and children. There was no panic, no rash decision. Instead, the atmosphere was filled with dignified awareness and subtle apprehension. Imagine the soft rustle of garments, the gentle murmur of conversations, and the quiet exchange of glances filled with unspoken understanding. The Greek presence remained controlled, their discipline ensuring that the royal family's dignity was preserved even as their authority waned. The narrative, soft and deliberate, allows the listener to absorb the weight of the moment without sudden disturbance. As the Greeks consolidated control, they approached Priam and his family with careful respect, reflecting the honor traditionally afforded to kings, even in times of conquest. The king observed them quietly, noting their discipline, patience, and precise execution of strategy. Imagine the soft glow of sunlight filtering through windows, illuminating faces both familiar and foreign, while the subtle rhythm of movement and attention created an atmosphere that was simultaneously tense and calm. This careful orchestration of interaction emphasizes the power of intellect, timing, and human understanding over brute force, providing a reflective, immersive experience for the listener. In the moments that followed, the fate of Priam was sealed with quiet inevitability. He faced the Greek warriors with dignity, aware that his city had been outmaneuvered rather than overwhelmed. The narrative here is gentle, reflective, and immersive, describing the fall of authority not as a violent rupture, but as a soft, inevitable shift, emphasizing the rhythm of patience and strategic intelligence. His attendants and family observed with calm apprehension, absorbing the quiet assertion of power without sudden alarm. The contrast between the serene surroundings of the palace and the subtle pressure exerted by the Greeks creates a soothing, tension-filled atmosphere suitable for bedtime storytelling. The royal children, guided gently by attendants, were moved to safety within the palace, shielded from direct confrontation while the Greeks secured control. Priam, aware of his own impending fate, maintained a composed presence, his actions measured, reflective, and dignified. The story emphasizes patience, foresight, and the quiet unfolding of events rather than chaos, creating a narrative that lulls the listener into a meditative awareness of destiny, human behavior, and the inexorable passage of time. By late afternoon, the Greek conquest of the palace was effectively complete. Priam's authority had been neutralized, his family contained safely, and the city's royal center now existed under the controlled influence of those who had patiently orchestrated its fall. Imagine the soft sounds of controlled movement, the subtle shift of guards, and the quiet assertion of order that replaced the familiar rhythms of the palace. In this measured, reflective portrayal, the fall of Troy's royal family becomes a calm, immersive lesson in strategy, patience, and the gentle, inevitable movement of fate through both human and divine design. And so, the fate of Priam and the royal family was sealed not with sudden violence, but through careful, deliberate strategy, patience, and precise execution. The palace, once a symbol of pride, security, and power, now stood quietly under Greek control. The story flows gently, guiding the listener through reflection, anticipation, and immersive tension, all while maintaining the soothing, sleep-friendly rhythm that has been the hallmark of the narrative from the very beginning. With the royal family secured and the city's key positions under control, the Greeks turned their attention to consolidating their hold over Troy while preparing for their eventual departure. The streets, once bustling with the measured routines of mourning, now carried a softer, more controlled rhythm. Imagine the subtle shuffle of boots across stone, the low murmur of commands, and the careful placement of soldiers at critical junctures, all orchestrated with patience and quiet precision. Every movement was deliberate, intended to maintain order and ensure that the conquest remained seamless and almost ceremonial rather than chaotic. Merchants and citizens moved cautiously through the streets, adjusting to the subtle presence of their new overseers. There was no panic, but a gentle awareness of change, as if the city itself had sensed a quiet tide moving through its heart. Families glanced toward windows, children paused in their play, and soldiers shifted positions with calm efficiency. The Greeks, masters of discipline and strategy, ensured that Troy's daily life continued with minimal disruption, maintaining a rhythm that was both controlled and serene. This approach emphasized the intelligence and foresight of their actions, creating a reflective, immersive atmosphere for the listener. The wooden horse, now empty of its hidden occupants, remained a silent centerpiece in the city. Citizens continued to marvel at its size, craftsmanship, and symbolism, unaware that it had served as the ultimate instrument of subterfuge. Imagine the polished timbers glistening under the afternoon sun, the soft shadows cast across streets, and the gentle movement of curious observers circling it in awe. Its presence reinforced both the grandeur of Greek cunning and the city's temporary illusion of safety, adding to the immersive narrative of subtle strategy and calculated patience. Greek soldiers moved quietly through the remaining gates, ensuring that each point of entry and exit was controlled and secure. Imagine the soft click of latches, the muted thud of feet on stone, and the whispered coordination between officers as they guided reinforcements into position. The operation was precise, methodical, and deliberate, demonstrating the power of strategy over brute force. Even as the city adjusted to the new order, the Greeks maintained a calm, almost meditative focus on each task, reinforcing the immersive, reflective tone of the story. Inside the city, the inhabitants began to accept the subtle reality of their changed circumstances. Citizens moved with cautious curiosity, observing the disciplined soldiers with quiet interest rather than fear. Imagine families carrying out daily routines under the watchful but non-threatening presence of Greek warriors, the city's energy soft and measured rather than chaotic. This balance between control and calm allowed Troy to transition from prideful independence to subdued compliance with grace, reflecting both the effectiveness of the Greek strategy and the gentle pacing suitable for a sleep-friendly narrative. Odysseus himself oversaw the careful organization of the city, moving with subtle authority and guiding the soldiers with quiet, precise gestures. His mind, always calculating, anticipated potential disruptions and ensured that every movement reinforced control while preserving the calm atmosphere. Imagine him pausing to observe a street, signaling silently to position reinforcements, and adjusting plans with serene composure. The story here emphasizes intellect and foresight, blending anticipation and reflective observation in a rhythm that is both immersive and soothing for the listener. As the afternoon wore on, the Greeks began cataloging and securing valuable resources within the city. Treasure, provisions, and strategic stores were quietly gathered, moved, and protected, each action executed with careful attention to detail. Imagine soft footsteps echoing in empty corridors, the faint rustle of coins and parchment, and the measured movements of soldiers carrying essential goods. Even these acts of acquisition maintained a calm, deliberate pace, reinforcing the narrative's tone of reflection, strategy, and gentle anticipation rather than abrupt tension or alarm. The city, now fully subdued, became a stage for the final acts of preparation. Soldiers ensured that key gates were locked and guarded, streets remained clear for organized movement, and the palace retained order under controlled oversight. Imagine courtyards bathed in warm sunlight, shadows shifting softly across stone floors, and the gentle hum of disciplined coordination filling the quiet spaces. This environment allowed the listener to appreciate the mastery of strategic patience, the quiet unfolding of victory, and the immersive rhythm of a city gently reshaped without overt violence or chaos. As the Greeks prepared for their departure, plans were made to reassemble the fleet at the nearby shore. Imagine the soft lapping of waves against the hulls, sails adjusted quietly in the gentle wind, and soldiers moving calmly along the decks, their disciplined presence reflecting the careful planning of every stage of the campaign. The return to the ships was as methodical and deliberate as the initial infiltration, demonstrating the consistent rhythm of control and strategy that defined the entire operation. The narrative here maintains a soothing, immersive pace, guiding the listener through observation and reflection rather than sudden excitement. In the final hours of their control, the Greeks ensured that Troy remained orderly, secure, and subdued, the city gently yielding to the meticulous orchestration of patience, strategy, and intelligence. Imagine quiet streets, citizens moving with measured caution, and the soft presence of soldiers maintaining subtle authority. The story emphasizes reflection, calm anticipation, and the quiet unfolding of destiny, allowing the listener to absorb the intricacies of strategy, human behavior, and historical consequence while remaining relaxed and engaged in a gentle, immersive rhythm. And so, the Greeks secured the city and prepared for departure with quiet efficiency, leaving Troy intact but transformed, subdued but orderly, its fate rewritten through intelligence, foresight, and deliberate action. The story flows gently, allowing the listener to drift along with the rhythm of calm strategy, reflective tension, and immersive storytelling, perfectly suited for the soothing, sleep-friendly style established from the very beginning. As the sun began to descend toward the horizon, casting long, warm shadows across the streets of Troy, the Greek forces quietly prepared to depart. Imagine the soft shimmer of the evening light on stone walls, the gentle glow reflecting off the wooden timbers of the now empty horse, and the faint rustle of leaves in the cool breeze that swept through the city. The streets, previously filled with the rhythmic presence of soldiers, now carried a softer, lighter energy, the quiet aftermath of occupation settling gently over the city. Citizens moved cautiously, adjusting to the unusual calm and reflecting on the surreal events that had unfolded over the day. The Greek soldiers boarded their ships with practiced precision, steps measured, voices subdued, ensuring that the transition from the conquered city back to their fleet remained orderly and undisturbed. Imagine the soft creak of timbers beneath feet, the gentle tug of ropes as sails were adjusted, and the low murmur of coordination between officers who had overseen every detail of the plan. There was no rush, no loud celebration. Instead, a quiet, deliberate rhythm defined the departure, emphasizing the discipline and patience that had characterized the entire campaign. From the city walls, some Trojans watched silently, their gazes following the retreating ships with a mixture of relief, wonder, and a subtle sense of loss. Families gathered near windows and balconies, sharing quiet observations and reflections on the day's events. Imagine the gentle sounds of children whispering, elders exchanging measured words, and merchants pausing to observe the distant figures gliding across the sea. The narrative here emphasizes calm reflection, allowing the listener to immerse themselves in the soft interplay between human curiosity, awareness, and the passage of history. Within Troy, the streets that had been filled with quiet tension now carried a sense of tentative calm. Citizens moved slowly, touching the timbers of the horse one last time, observing the absence of Greek soldiers, and adjusting to the subtle realization that their city had been subdued without widespread violence. Imagine the soft shuffle of feet across cobblestones, the low hum of conversation, and the gentle movements of people rediscovering their daily rhythms. The contrast between the dramatic events of the previous night and day and the present serenity highlights both the resilience of human nature and the quiet power of intelligence and strategy over force. King Priam, reflecting on the day's events, moved through the palace with measured contemplation. He observed the quiet streets beyond the walls, the subtle changes in the city's atmosphere, and the faint gleam of the wooden horse standing at the center. Imagine his thoughtful gaze resting on familiar courtyards and corridors, absorbing the weight of history that had unfolded so quietly, yet so decisively. The soft, reflective tone of the narrative allows the listener to feel the gravity of leadership, the burden of wisdom, and the gentle realization that even the proudest city is shaped by patience, strategy, and the actions of others. The city's inhabitants, now slowly coming to terms with the quiet conclusion of the Greek occupation, began to whisper among themselves. Stories of the knight's infiltration, the emergence of warriors from the horse, and the careful, controlled conquests circulated softly through households and marketplaces. Imagine families seated in dimly lit rooms, sharing recollections in gentle tones, the soft crackle of fires punctuating their words, and the slow, measured steps of citizens moving through the evening streets. This reflective atmosphere preserves the immersive, sleep-friendly rhythm of the story while allowing the listener to imagine the city's recovery and contemplation. Outside the walls, the Greek fleet slipped across the gentle waves, sails billowing softly in the evening breeze. Soldiers moved calmly along the decks, checking supplies, observing the distant lights of Troy, and preparing for the next phase of their journey. Imagine the faint lapping of water against hulls, the soft creak of timbers, and the subdued coordination of men who had patiently executed a plan years in the making. The departure was quiet, controlled, and deliberate, emphasizing reflection and measured action over chaos or abrupt celebration, perfectly matching the immersive, relaxing tone of the narrative. As darkness began to fall, the city of Troy settled into a softer rhythm. Families returned to their homes, the markets and streets grew still, and the shadows lengthened across walls and alleyways. The wooden horse, gleaming faintly in the dimming light, remained as a silent reminder of the cleverness, patience, and precision that had shaped the city's fate. Imagine the faint glow of torches reflected on polished timbers, the soft murmur of voices in quiet courtyards, and the gentle cadence of footsteps in streets now largely free of foreign presence. This calm, reflective imagery enhances the immersive quality of the story, allowing listeners to drift into contemplation and relaxation. The people of Troy began to reflect on the lessons of the day. The quiet efficiency of the Greeks, the patience and strategy that had outmaneuvered the city's defenses, and the subtle unfolding of events became a source of both awe and introspection. Imagine small groups discussing the events in hushed tones, elders guiding children to understand the subtlety of strategy, and citizens moving through the streets with careful awareness of history's passage. The narrative maintains a gentle rhythm, emphasizing thoughtfulness, reflection, and the quiet power of intellect over brute force. And so, as the Greeks departed and the city of Troy settled into the soft embrace of evening, a sense of calm reflection filled the streets. The wooden horse stood as a monument to strategy and patience. The royal family retained dignity within their palace, and the citizens absorbed the quiet lessons of the day. The story flows gently, guiding the listener through reflection, observation, and a meditative rhythm that blends history, human behavior, and strategy into an immersive, sleep-friendly experience. The city of Troy, forever changed, entered a period of quiet contemplation, carrying the memory of the day and the gentle, deliberate unfolding of destiny into the night. In the days following the Greek departure, the city of Troy began the slow, deliberate process of recovery and reflection. The streets, once filled with the soft murmur of occupation, now carried a tentative calm, as citizens moved through their routines with renewed awareness. Imagine the gentle shuffle of feet across cobblestones, the soft creak of doors opening in quiet homes, and the low hum of conversation as families shared stories of recent events. Troy was still proud, still resilient, but subtly transformed, carrying the memory of a day when patience and intelligence had quietly reshaped its destiny. The wooden horse, no longer a vessel of hidden warriors, remained at the city's center, its towering presence a symbol of both cleverness and caution. Citizens approached it with reverent curiosity, running fingers along polished timbers and marveling at the ingenuity that had delivered the Greeks into their city so quietly. Imagine the faint sparkle of sunlight on its surface, the long shadows stretching across the surrounding square, and the soft murmur of families sharing observations. Its presence served as a reminder of the delicate balance between pride and vulnerability, strategy and trust, weaving lessons into the very fabric of the city's daily life. King Priam moved through the palace and the surrounding courtyards with thoughtful reflection. He observed the streets, watched his citizens, and considered the consequences of the events that had unfolded. Imagine his eyes tracing familiar pathways, noting the subtle changes in expression on the faces of his guards, and feeling the quiet weight of history pressing gently upon him. The king's contemplative pace mirrored the calm rhythm of the city itself, a reflection of the patience, dignity, and wisdom that had guided him through years of leadership and now helped him navigate the aftermath of a carefully executed conquest. Stories began to circulate, whispered softly among citizens and shared with curious children. Families gathered near hearths, recounting the cleverness of the Greeks, the silent emergence from the wooden horse, and the measured, patient occupation of the city. Imagine the soft crackle of fires, the gentle gestures of animated storytelling, and the slow, deliberate cadence of words shared in quiet reflection. The events, once tense and suspenseful, now became part of Troy's living memory, woven into bedtime tales, family conversations, and the rhythm of everyday life. Merchants and craftspeople returned to their routines, carrying out their work with careful attention to the lessons of recent days. Imagine the soft scraping of tools against stone and wood, the measured placement of goods in quiet markets, and the low hum of negotiation and barter. Each act, small and deliberate, reflected a city recovering with dignity, mindful of both the resilience of its people and the subtle power of strategy that had quietly altered their fate. This gentle, reflective pace allows the listener to drift with the rhythm of daily life, appreciating the interplay between human ingenuity, history, and the natural cadence of existence. Children, guided by parents and elders, listened intently to stories of the wooden horse and the quiet triumph of intelligence over force. Imagine their eyes wide with wonder, their hands tracing the edges of wooden models, and their soft whispers echoing in the quiet rooms. These stories became part of Troy's cultural memory, a gentle lesson in observation, patience, and the importance of understanding both human nature and strategy. The narrative flows with calm intensity, allowing listeners to immerse themselves in reflection, learning, and gentle anticipation without sudden tension or disruption. Outside the palace, the city began to restore its public spaces, arranging marketplaces, cleaning streets, and repairing minor damage sustained during the day's events. Imagine the soft murmur of citizens coordinating tasks, the gentle scrape of brooms across cobblestones, and the subtle movement of goods and structures in careful restoration. The act of rebuilding, performed with patience and collaboration, reinforced the city's resilience and provided a soft, immersive rhythm for the listener, blending the themes of recovery, reflection, and communal effort. As the days passed, the citizens of Troy began to discuss the lessons learned, often in hushed, reflective tones. The cleverness of the Greeks, the subtle orchestration of events, and the quiet fall of the city became a source of both caution and admiration. Imagine groups of neighbors seated in sunlit courtyards, sharing observations in low voices, the air filled with the gentle cadence of reflection and conversation. These discussions, soft and deliberate, reinforced the immersive, sleep-friendly quality of the story, highlighting strategy, intellect, and calm observation rather than conflict and chaos. The royal family, guided by King Priam's measured leadership, slowly re-established a sense of stability within the palace. Courtyards echoed with the soft rhythm of daily routines, attendants moved with careful efficiency, and children resumed gentle play in the gardens. Imagine the subtle rustle of fabrics, the low hum of conversation, and the soft movement of caretakers attending to their tasks. Even in the quiet aftermath of conquest, the city preserved dignity, order, and the gentle rhythm of life, creating a reflective, immersive experience for the listener. And so, Troy rebuilt itself, not through immediate triumph, but through careful reflection, patient restoration, and the subtle weaving of stories that would endure for generations. The wooden horse remained at the city's heart, a symbol of intelligence, strategy, and the delicate interplay between caution and curiosity. Imagine the soft glow of the afternoon sun on the city walls, the gentle movement of citizens through familiar streets, and the low, reflective tones of storytelling that passed from one generation to the next. In this calm, immersive rhythm, Troy's recovery became both a lesson and a lullaby, guiding the listener through reflection, imagination, and gentle contemplation. As the days stretched into weeks, the story of the Trojan horse became more than just a memory. It transformed into legend, a tale whispered gently among the people of Troy and carried beyond the city's walls to distant lands. Imagine the warm glow of the setting sun casting soft shadows over the streets, the gentle rustle of olive branches in the evening breeze, and families gathering in quiet courtyards to recount the extraordinary events of that night and day. The wooden horse, towering and silent in the city's center, stood as a reminder of intelligence, patience, and the subtle art of strategy, inspiring awe and reflection rather than fear or chaos. King Priam, reflecting on the quiet fall of his city and the lessons embedded in its gentle transformation, often walked the streets of Troy in measured contemplation. Imagine his footsteps echoing softly on stone pathways, the faint murmur of citizens acknowledging his presence, and the gentle rhythm of a city learning to balance resilience with humility. Each corner, each courtyard, seemed to hold a memory of the events. The quiet emergence of Greek warriors, the subtle consolidation of control, and the patient, almost ceremonial, orchestration of conquest. These memories, soft yet profound, shaped the collective consciousness of Troy, creating a narrative that would echo for generations. The wooden horse itself became a focal point of storytelling, a symbol both of cleverness and caution. Children ran their fingers along its smooth timbers, elders shared measured explanations of its role, and storytellers narrated the subtle unfolding of events with a calm cadence that encouraged reflection. Imagine the soft murmur of voices, the gentle flicker of torches illuminating the polished wood at night, and the quiet smiles of listeners absorbing the lessons of patience, strategy, and observation. The horse's silent presence anchored the city's memory, a tactile, visual reminder of the ingenuity that had quietly reshaped Troy's fate. Merchants and craftsmen incorporated the story into their daily routines, using it as both inspiration and cautionary example. Imagine the low hum of conversation in markets, the gentle rhythm of tools shaping wood and stone, and the reflective pauses as stories of the Trojan horse were shared alongside the tasks of daily life. The narrative emphasized intellect over force, patience over haste, and subtlety over chaos, creating a calm, immersive rhythm that guided citizens through their routines while maintaining awareness of history's quiet lessons. The royal family, under King Priam's careful guidance, continued to preserve dignity, stability, and measured leadership. Imagine the soft rustle of fabric as attendants moved through courtyards, the gentle laughter of children playing under watchful eyes, and the slow, deliberate pace of daily life in the palace. Even after the extraordinary events that had reshaped their city, order and calm were maintained, reflecting the enduring values of patience, wisdom, and reflection. The narrative here allows the listener to absorb both the grandeur and the subtlety of leadership in moments of quiet consequence. Storytellers traveled beyond Troy, sharing the tale with neighboring cities and distant lands. They described the patient cunning of the Greeks, the quiet precision with which the wooden horse was used, and the gentle, immersive manner in which the city had been overrun. Imagine these tales told in low, measured tones around fires, in soft, echoing halls, and under starlit skies, each word chosen carefully to preserve calm reflection and immersive storytelling. The story spread like a gentle breeze, leaving lessons of strategy, patience, and human ingenuity in its wake, shaping the understanding of generations who would never witness Troy firsthand. Citizens of Troy, reflecting on the events, began to integrate the lessons into their own lives. Parents guided children with subtle wisdom, reminding them of observation, patience, and cautious judgment. Imagine the quiet warmth of firesides, the gentle cadence of advice and reflection, and the slow, deliberate sharing of experiences. Even the smallest details, a cautious glance before opening a gate, a careful step through a crowded street, a thoughtful pause before a decision, carried echoes of the lessons learned from the Greek conquest, creating a reflective, immersive rhythm in daily life. As time passed, the city's walls, streets, and public spaces continued to hold the memory of the Trojan horse, not as a reminder of fear, but as a monument to subtle intelligence and patient strategy. Imagine the soft glint of sunlight on polished stones, the rustle of leaves in quiet gardens, and the gentle flow of the river along familiar paths, all punctuating the calm rhythm of Troy's recovery and reflection. The city's legacy became entwined with the legend of the horse, its lessons integrated into the collective memory in a way that was immersive, contemplative, and soothing for the imagination. Even beyond Troy, the story influenced minds and hearts, inspiring thinkers, strategists, and storytellers for generations to come. Imagine soft conversations in distant halls, pens tracing careful words in quiet study rooms, and gentle discussions around fires where listeners reflected on the power of patience, strategy, and human foresight. The tale of the Trojan horse became a quiet guide for reflection, a reminder that intelligence and careful planning often outweigh sheer force, and that subtlety and observation are as powerful as strength and valor. And so, the legacy of the Trojan horse endured, not in the loud clash of swords or the chaos of immediate conflict, but in the gentle, immersive lessons it left behind. Troy, its people, and its stories became living reminders of the quiet power of strategy, patience, and intelligence. Imagine the city at twilight, soft lantern light glimmering across the streets, citizens moving through familiar paths with measured calm, and storytellers weaving the tale with the gentle cadence of reflection. In this serene, contemplative rhythm, the story of the Trojan horse lives on, guiding the listener through history, imagination, and the subtle, enduring art of strategy. As the evening deepened over Troy, the city settled into a rhythm of quiet reflection. Imagine the soft glow of lanterns flickering against stone walls, shadows stretching across narrow streets, and the gentle hum of voices sharing stories, thoughts, and observations from the day's events. Families moved slowly through their homes, whispering recollections of the wooden horse, the subtle infiltration, and the patient precision with which the Greeks had reshaped their city. The atmosphere was calm, yet imbued with the weight of memory, a blend of awe, reflection, and gentle understanding that perfectly suited the close of the story. King Priam walked through his palace courtyards one last time before retiring for the evening. Each step was measured, each glance deliberate, taking in the gardens, corridors, and familiar spaces that now felt transformed by the events that had unfolded. Imagine the soft rustle of fabric and footsteps against stone, the gentle ripple of fountains, and the warm glow of fading sunlight casting long, peaceful shadows. His thoughts drifted over the lessons of patience, strategy, and the quiet power of intellect, realizing that history often turns not with force or noise, but with subtlety, foresight, and measured action. The narrative here allows the listener to follow his contemplative path, absorbing reflection alongside calm imagery. The citizens of Troy, too, paused in the evening light to consider what had occurred. Streets that had been tense with uncertainty were now filled with slow movement, the gentle shuffle of feet and quiet conversation creating a soothing rhythm. Imagine families gathering in courtyards, whispering stories to children, merchants quietly preparing for the next day, and neighbors exchanging thoughtful glances. The wooden horse stood in the city center, its silent presence a lasting reminder of intelligence, cunning, and the patience that often governs human destiny. The contrast between the calm evening and the memory of dramatic events creates a serene tension, inviting listeners to reflect without disruption. In homes, storytellers recounted the events for those who had not witnessed them firsthand. Soft voices wove the tale of the Greeks emerging from the wooden horse, the subtle occupation of Troy, and the gentle, deliberate securing of key positions. Imagine the soft crackle of fires, the low murmur of listeners leaning in, and the measured cadence of words guiding imagination through action without abruptness. The story became a vehicle for learning, reflection, and calm wonder, illustrating how strategy, patience, and foresight shape outcomes even in the most dramatic circumstances. As night deepened, the city's rhythms softened further. Courtyards emptied, markets closed, and the gentle hush of evening wrapped the streets in quiet. Imagine the distant murmur of the river flowing beyond the city walls, the soft sway of trees in the breeze, and the faint creak of doors closing for the night. The memory of the Trojan horse lingered in every corner, a calm reminder of intellect, foresight, and human ingenuity. Citizens reflected on the lessons imparted by the quiet conquest, that even the proudest cities can be transformed by subtle strategy, and that observation, patience, and planning often surpass sheer strength. King Priam's family retired to the palace chambers with dignity and quiet contemplation. Imagine soft footsteps along polished floors, gentle whispers of reassurance, and the slow, deliberate cadence of settling into nightly routines. The weight of recent events pressed softly, not with urgency, but with the reflective calm of a city absorbing lessons over time. Even as Troy rested, the legacy of the Trojan horse continued to echo in thought, memory, and imagination, reminding the people that wisdom often guides destiny more effectively than force alone. Outside the city, the stars began to emerge in the clear night sky. Imagine the soft twinkle of constellations, the gentle glow reflecting on rooftops, and the quiet rhythm of nocturnal life continuing in harmony with human reflection. The Greek forces were far across the sea, yet their actions had left an enduring mark, one that shaped stories, understanding, and the rhythm of daily life. The narrative allows the listener to feel this calm passage of time, drifting gently through reflection, historical contemplation, and imagination as the city and its people adjust to the soft imprint of history. The city of Troy, now at peace, embraced the lessons of the day with measured awareness. Citizens walked softly along familiar streets, children listened attentively to stories, and elders offered guidance imbued with patience and reflection. Imagine the slow turning of gates, the quiet sweep of courtyards, and the gentle footsteps echoing through empty halls, all underscoring a city shaped by experience, memory, and the enduring influence of the Trojan horse. The immersive narrative fosters calm engagement, letting the listener absorb wisdom and reflection alongside soothing imagery. As the night deepened further, Troy's story became both a memory and a legend. The wooden horse remained at the center, a silent guardian of lessons learned, the subtle power of patience, the effectiveness of intellect over force, and the quiet inevitability of fate when guided by careful strategy. Citizens drifted to sleep with these lessons in mind, imagining the events, reflecting on the wisdom embedded in them, and absorbing the calm rhythm of history's unfolding. The storytelling pace encourages gentle contemplation and relaxation, perfectly suited to a sleep-friendly experience. And so, the story of Troy and the Trojan horse concluded, not with loud triumphs or dramatic chaos, but with calm reflection, measured understanding, and the enduring rhythm of history remembered and shared. Imagine the city at peace under a starry sky, soft lanterns glowing, shadows gently dancing across the streets, and citizens resting while history's quiet lessons linger in thought. The narrative flows gently to its close, guiding the listener through reflection, meditation, and imagination, leaving the tale of Troy as a soothing, immersive journey into history, human ingenuity, and the enduring legacy of patience, strategy, and wisdom.